1. Stop for a moment and listen. Heaven is calling your name. Everything around you has been moving at a relentless pace. But now, in this holy moment, the King of Heaven has pressed pause. You have been pushing, striving, and stretching yourself beyond the limits of your strength. But the Father is saying, you have done enough. Now, let me take over. This is not a suggestion. This is a divine decree. You are not reading this by accident. Heaven has orchestrated every second leading to this moment. All the battles you've fought in silence, all the burdens you've carried when no one else saw, all the nights you cried but still got up in the morning, they have been counted, weighed, and recorded in heaven's book. You have carried more than most. And still, you did not break. That, chosen one, is why you are here right now. The weight you feel lifting from your shoulders is not imagination. It is the shift in the spirit realm. Where you once felt the crushing pressure of responsibility, heaven is sending its armies to stand where you can no longer stand. Do you feel that? The stillness, the peace slipping in between your breaths? That is God Himself stepping into your battlefield. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 4, "Though I walk through the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff comfort me." This is more than poetry. It is your reality. You have been walking through shadows, but the shepherd has never once left your side. For too long, you have mistaken your relentless effort for faith. You thought that if you just worked harder, prayed longer, or fought stronger, you could force the breakthrough. But heaven is saying, the breakthrough is mine to give. The outcome is mine to control. The victory is mine to seal. What God is asking of you now is not more work, but more surrender. Do not misunderstand this surrender as weakness. It is the most powerful act you can take right now. It is warfare through rest. The enemy's strategy is to exhaust you, to make you believe that the fight depends on your strength. But when you stand still, you declare to every principality and power that your strength is not your own. It is drawn from the eternal well of the Almighty. Look back for a moment. Remember the times you were sure you wouldn't make it through, yet here you are. Remember the doors that slammed shut in your face, only for God to lead you to better ones you never expected. Those were rehearsals for this moment. This is the point where you step out of the driver's seat, and heaven takes the wheel. This is why you have been feeling a divine heaviness lately, not the heaviness of despair, but the weight of a holy hand slowing you down. He is saying, if you keep moving in your own power, you will wear yourself out and miss the miracle I have prepared. You are not being delayed. You are being positioned. Let this truth sink into your spirit. Heaven has a better strategy than you could ever design. You have been working with limited information, but God sees the beginning and the end all at once. He has already walked into your future and prepared the table. He has already commanded the resources, the favor, and the open doors to meet you exactly where He will lead you. Next, your only assignment now is to be still and know that He is God. Chosen one, I know you are used to carrying it all. I know you've become the strong one for everyone else, even when you're breaking inside. But there is a reason God is speaking this over you now. He is not just taking over for today. He is setting a precedent in your life. From this moment on, you are moving from self-striving to God-led victories. And when heaven takes over, everything changes. Your enemies are silenced without you saying a word. Situations that looked hopeless begin to turn without your interference. Battles that would have drained you for years are won in a moment by the power of the one who speaks, and it is done. This is the holy pause, the point where you decide to step aside and watch God do what only He can do. You are not losing control. You are giving control to the only one who can guarantee the outcome. You are not walking away from the fight. You are handing the fight to the undefeated champion. So take a deep breath right now. Release every plan, every deadline, every fear into His hands. Whisper it if you have to. Lord, I step aside. I let you take over. Feel the shift in your spirit as the weight begins to lift. This is the moment where the takeover begins. And as you stand in this holy moment, I ask you, if you know this word is for you, if your spirit is burning inside right now, do something prophetic. Like, share, and subscribe so that this message reaches more chosen ones who need to hear that they can finally stop striving. And in the comments, type the number 777, the number of divine completion, as a public declaration that you are stepping aside and letting heaven finish what it started. You have carried more than most people could even imagine. The weight has not been only in your hands, but in your mind, your heart, and your spirit. You've been silently solving problems no one else even knew existed. Smiling in public while collapsing in private. People have leaned on you without realizing how tired you already were. Some nights, you laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, not because you wanted to think, but because your mind refused to shut off. The what-ifs played like an endless loop. What if this falls apart? What if I fail? What if they can't manage without me? That constant mental strain has been like a heavy stone pressing down on your soul. And yet, you have kept going. You've kept showing up. You've kept holding the line. It wasn't because you had endless strength. It was because something deep inside of you, placed there by God Himself, refused to quit. That resilience is the mark of a chosen one. It is what has carried you this far. But it was never meant to carry you forever. The truth is, there's a difference between endurance and overload. Endurance builds you, overload breaks you. You've been walking a fine line between the two, and heaven saw it. You might think you've been surviving on your own, but if you look closely, you will see fingerprints of divine intervention scattered across your path. Times when a door opened at the last possible moment. Times when a conversation brought unexpected clarity. Times when you were on the edge of breaking, but a wave of peace came from nowhere. Beloved, God has been preserving you in ways you did not recognize. That's why you're still here. That's why, despite the weight, you haven't completely crumbled. You are sustained by a supernatural source. And now, heaven is shifting you into a different mode of living. It is important to understand, the burdens you've carried have shaped you, but they were never meant to define you. The enemy has tried to convince you that your worth is tied to how much you can endure. That is a lie. Your worth comes from who God says you are, not from how much weight you can carry on your shoulders. If you keep believing you must hold everything together, you will live in a constant state of exhaustion, even in seasons when you should be at peace. God is not asking you to abandon your responsibilities. He is asking you to stop thinking you must bear them alone. There is a difference. There's a reason Jesus said His yoke is easy and His burden is light. He never promised that there would be no burden, but he promised that his way of carrying it would not crush you. When you take on weights he never assigned to you, the heaviness becomes unbearable. But when you walk in the assignments he has given, there is a grace that makes even the difficult days bearable. We find in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Notice, it does not say through sheer willpower, nor through the approval of others, but through Christ. That is the divine exchange, your weakness for his strength, your exhaustion for his energy, your limitations for his limitless power. Beloved, chosen one. Sometimes God will let the weight feel heavier than normal, not because he wants you to fail, but because he wants you to finally admit you cannot do it alone. The moment you acknowledge your limit is the moment you make space for his unlimited help. Think of the burdens you carry as seeds. Some were planted by God. They will grow into blessings, ministries, opportunities, and testimonies. Others were thrown at you by life, circumstances, or people who never considered the cost to you. God is now walking you through the garden of your soul, pointing to each seed and saying, this stays, this goes, this is mine to water, this is mine to uproot. This process may feel strange, even disorienting. You may feel lighter and not know what to do with the extra space in your mind and heart. That's normal. You've been so used to operating at maximum strain that peace will feel unfamiliar at first. But trust this, the more space you give to God, the more he will fill it with the right things. Do not be surprised if people around you misunderstand this shift. They may think you are doing less, when in reality, you are making room for God to do more. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. You are learning the difference between being productive and being overburdened. In this new season, your measure of success will not be how much you carry, but how much you let God carry for you. This is the quiet strength of a true chosen one, knowing when to step forward and when to step aside. Some of you will feel a sense of release even as you read these words. That's because heaven is already beginning the transfer. The invisible hands of God are lifting the heaviest stones off your shoulders. You may not see the change instantly in your circumstances, but you will feel it in your spirit, the tightness loosening, the anxiety softening, the constant sense of urgency fading. Beloved, rest is not laziness. It is obedience. It is saying, Lord, I trust you enough to stop running ahead of you. When you do that, the ground beneath your feet becomes steadier, your decisions become clearer, and your heart becomes calmer. You have done enough. Heaven has taken note of your faithfulness, your persistence, and your sacrifices. Now, it is God's turn to carry the weight. This is not the end of your journey. It is a change in how you will travel it. You will move forward, lighter, freer, and more focused, not because life got easier, but because you are no longer carrying it alone. Chosen one. The moment of response has arrived. You have heard the whisper of heaven. Now the question is, will you answer it? You are not reading these words by accident. This is not a casual message you stumbled across. This is a divine summons for your spirit to speak back to the one who has been speaking to you all along. Right now, there is a battle taking place in an unseen realm. It is not a battle of swords and shields, but of surrender and control. The enemy wants you silent, distracted, scrolling past this without a second thought. but heaven is leaning close, waiting to hear your agreement. You don't have to write a paragraph. You don't have to compose a perfect prayer. You just have to open your mouth, or in this case, your fingertips, and let your spirit speak in a simple, clear act of faith. The reason this is so significant is because heaven responds to faith, not just to need. There are countless people with needs, but it is faith that moves the heart of God. By making your response today, you are taking your private agreement and turning it into a public declaration before heaven. The enemy will whisper, "It's just a small action. It doesn't matter." But that's because he knows the truth. Prophetic acts, no matter how small they seem, carry weight in the spirit. Remember when Moses lifted his staff over the Red Sea? That was a simple physical act, but heaven used it to split the waters. Your act today is the lifting of your staff. It is a sign to both heaven and hell that you belong to the King. You have to understand something. Obedience in small things unlocks greater things. Many want to hear God for the big decisions of life, but ignore Him in the small moments. Yet, Scripture shows us that those who are faithful with little are entrusted with much. When you respond here and now, you are training your spirit to respond quickly to His voice in every area of life. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 12. "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you." See the order? You call, you come, you speak, and He listens. God is not distant, taking notes from afar. He leans in when His children respond. This is not just about the action itself. It is about what the action represents. It represents humility, acknowledging that you hear something beyond yourself. It represents surrender, admitting you are open to whatever comes next. It represents readiness, signaling that your heart is positioned for action. It also represents separation, a deliberate stepping out from the noise and confusion of the world. When you choose to act in response to God's voice, you are cutting ties with the patterns that have kept you bound. It is a refusal to be defined by fear, doubt, or the expectations of others. This act of response draws a line in the sand, marking you as one who belongs to heaven. And once that line is drawn, heaven stands on your side, ready to defend and establish the promise over your life. It represents trust, a bold decision to place your life in the hands of the one who has never failed you. Trust is not passive, it is active agreement with God's plan. Even when you cannot see the whole picture, when you respond, you are saying, "I will walk, even if the path is hidden, because I know who leads me." That level of trust invites supernatural intervention. It opens doors you did not even know existed, and it causes your enemies to see that you are not moving by your own strength. It also represents alignment, a bringing of your heart, mind, and actions into the same posture before God. Many hear His voice, but keep their actions unchanged. Alignment means your steps match your confession, your choices match your faith, and your life matches the calling on your name. In the spirit realm, alignment acts like a beacon. It signals to heaven that you are in position, ready for the next instruction, ready for the blessing that has been prepared for you long before this moment. Think of the times in your life when you ignored a nudge from God and later realized you missed an opportunity. We have all been there. But this is different. This time, you will not miss it. This time, you will respond. This time, you will make your yes visible. The moment you respond, something begins to shift. You may not hear thunder. You may not see a vision. But in the spirit realm, a record is made. On this day, at this moment, they answered. That response sets off a chain reaction you may only fully understand in eternity. Beloved, don't let pride or doubt steal this from you. You might think, God knows my heart. I don't need to act. But the truth is, sometimes God asks for a physical expression to match the faith in your heart. That's why we lift hands in worship. Why we kneel in prayer. Why we speak words out loud. There is power when the spiritual and physical align. So here is the moment. Chosen one, let heaven see it. Let the spirit realm know it. Comment, I choose my crown, not as empty words, but as a declaration that you are accepting your divine identity, your authority in Christ, and your place in the plan of heaven. You are saying, I will not lay down in defeat. I will wear what God has placed on my head and walk in the calling He has given me. Let these words be your agreement with God's vision for your life. There is a moment in every journey where the old strategies no longer work. You feel it before you see it, like a shift in the wind. A quiet knowing that the season has changed. What once brought results now feels empty. What once gave you strength now feels like it is draining you. This is not failure. It is a sign that heaven is redirecting your steps. The end of self-reliance does not happen all at once. It is rarely a dramatic event. More often, it unfolds in layers. At first, you keep trying to push forward in the same ways, holding on to the habits and thought patterns that got you this far. But over time, you notice the weight of trying to control every outcome becomes heavier than it used to be. You sense there is a better way, but letting go feels risky, almost like you are stepping into a space where you have no map. In truth, that is exactly what God is asking of you. Self-reliance has been your survival skill, but it was never meant to be your permanent operating system. God's way is not about abandoning responsibility. It is about shifting the foundation you stand on. Instead of leaning on your own ability to figure everything out, you begin to lean on His ability to lead you, even in the dark. The danger of self-reliance is that it slowly convinces you that you are in control when, in reality, everything you have ever accomplished was only possible because of God's unseen hand. It tempts you to forget that your breath is a gift, your opportunities are divine appointments, and your wisdom is often heaven's whispers disguised as your own thoughts. When you forget these things, you begin to carry a weight you were never designed to hold. The ancient words recorded in Romans still echo today, for from Him and through Him and for Him are all things. To Him be the glory forever. This is not just a theological truth, it is a practical one. It means your plans, your strength, your future, they all begin and end in Him. When you release self-reliance, you make room for God to move in ways you could not have orchestrated. Sometimes, He will even allow your plans to collapse. Not because He wants you to fail, but because He knows that as long as you have a backup plan in your own strength, you will never fully lean on Him. It is in those moments of collapse that His strength shines the brightest. For many chosen ones, the hardest part of releasing self-reliance is the fear of appearing weak. Society celebrates the self-made, the independent, the ones who did it all themselves. But in the kingdom of God, the greatest victories belong to those who admit they can do nothing apart from Him. Heaven's definition of strength is very different from the world's. When you stop relying on yourself alone, you step into a rhythm where peace replaces panic. You still work. You still plan. But the pressure to make everything happen disappears. You no longer feel the constant knot in your chest when things take longer than expected. You no longer fear what will happen if you make a wrong step, because you trust that even your detours can be turned into divine direction. This is the beauty of walking in partnership with heaven. You are no longer the sole architect of your life. You become a co-laborer with God. And in that partnership, His strength fills your weakness. Think of Peter stepping out of the boat to walk on water. In his own strength, it was impossible. The laws of nature were against him. But the moment his focus was on Jesus, he did the impossible. The water beneath him became as solid as the ground. That is the difference between self-reliance and God-reliance. One keeps you in the boat. The other allows you to walk on what should sink you. Letting go of self-reliance also requires trust in God's timing. When you are used to making things happen, waiting feels like failure. But in the kingdom, waiting is often the stage where God does His deepest work in you. It is the season where roots grow underground, unseen but essential. The fruit will come, but the roots must be strong enough to hold it. You will also find that when you stop relying solely on yourself, your discernment sharpens. You are no longer rushing from task to task, driven by urgency. You become more sensitive to the gentle nudges of the Holy Spirit. You begin to notice the people God brings into your path, the doors He opens at just the right time, and the warnings He gives before trouble arrives. This shift is not without its challenges. The habit of self-reliance runs deep. You may find yourself slipping back into old patterns, trying to fix, control, or force outcomes. But every time you catch yourself, you have the opportunity to pause and return to that place of surrender. Over time, it becomes your new default setting. Not my will, but yours be done. Beloved, chosen one. The end of self-reliance is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of the chapter where God's power becomes the headline. It is where testimonies are born, where miracles unfold, and where burdens you carried for years suddenly lift because they are no longer yours to bear. If you are in a place where your plans have stopped working, where your strength feels depleted, and where the path ahead is unclear, do not despair. This is the very place where God loves to step in. This is the threshold between striving and resting, between controlling and trusting. Cross it, and you will find that His way is better. His plan is wiser, and His timing is perfect. And when you look back, you will realize something beautiful. Every step you took in your own strength brought you here, to the place where you could finally let go. And in letting go, you gained everything. Chosen one. There are moments when a word from heaven is not just meant to be received, it is meant to be carried forward, shared, and multiplied. This is one of those moments. What God has been speaking into your life is too weighty, too life-giving, to be locked away in your private notebook or buried deep in your thoughts. Truth like this is meant to travel. You may not realize it, but your journey, your victories and your struggles has the power to unlock hope in someone else's life. The same way these words are finding you now, they can find others through you. That's how the kingdom grows, one voice telling another, one life touching another, until the ripple becomes a wave. Think about how you even came to hear this message. Maybe it was because someone shared it, or you stumbled upon it at exactly the right time. That's not coincidence, that's divine orchestration. Heaven knows how to position the right word in front of the right person at the right time. And today, you are both the recipient and the messenger. There's a principle in the kingdom: what you value, you protect; what you honor, you pass on. If a word has truly impacted your heart, the most natural response is to let others taste what you have tasted. Sharing it isn't just about spreading information, it's about becoming a vessel of encouragement in a world that's starving for hope. When you click that share button, you're not just passing along content, you're passing along a spark. You are saying, I believe someone else's life could be changed by this, the way mine is being changed right now. And who knows, that one act could be the answer to a prayer someone whispered last night in tears. As for liking this message, think of it less as a digital reaction and more as a sign of agreement. It's your way of saying, I receive this. I stand with this. In the unseen, agreement matters. Scripture says that where two or more agree, there is power released. A simple click can be a form of that agreement. Even in the digital age. And subscribing, that's not about building numbers. It's about staying connected. When God begins to pour out a stream of revelation in your life, you don't want to be in and out of it sporadically. You want to remain in the flow. So you're ready for the next word, the next instruction, the next encouragement. Staying connected means you don't miss the pieces that complete the picture. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom. Notice the one another part. Faith is not a solo journey. We are built to strengthen each other, to remind each other of truth, to hold each other steady when the wind of life tries to knock us down. I know for some, sharing your faith feels intimidating. You might worry about what people will think, or if they will misunderstand your intentions. But remember, your role is not to control the outcome, only to be faithful with the seed you carry. Some will receive it immediately. Some will store it in their hearts until the right season, and others may walk away unchanged. Your assignment is simply to scatter the seed. God will handle the growth. Beloved, do not underestimate how God can use your voice, even in a simple post, a kit message, or a forwarded video. He can deliver life-altering truth to someone who feels forgotten. There are people right now who are one encouraging word away from not giving up. You could be the one to deliver that word. When you engage, when you like, when you share, when you subscribe, you are not doing it for me. You are doing it as an act of partnership with heaven's agenda. You are saying, I will not keep this light hidden. I will set it where others can see it. That is the posture of a true chosen one who not only receives, but also releases. There is a holy chain reaction waiting to start with you. Maybe a friend sees it and then shares it with their sister. Maybe that sister sends it to her co-worker, who sends it to a friend who was praying for a sign. And just like that, a single spark becomes a burning flame that lights up hearts across places you will never physically go. This is how revival moves in the digital age, not just in pulpits, but in posts, not just in churches, but in shared moments of truth that pierce the noise. You are not just a listener, you are a carrier. And when carriers move together, the reach becomes unstoppable. So yes, I will say it plainly, but with all sincerity. If this word has met you in a real way, If it has stirred something deep in your spirit, then like it as a sign of agreement. Share it so someone else can be strengthened, and subscribe so you remain in the ongoing flow of what God is releasing here, not for my sake, but because there is more coming, and I don't want you to miss a single piece of it. Beloved, chosen one, you are part of something bigger than you realize. Your small actions can create eternal impact. The story you are living right now is not just about you, it is about the people who will be touched because you were faithful in this moment. May this be the day you decide not only to receive from heaven, but to join in heaven's work of reaching others. And may you discover the joy of seeing a word you passed on become the exact thing someone else needed to hold on for one more day. There is something powerful about marking a moment. In the ancient world, God's people would set up stones of remembrance after a divine encounter, so that every time they passed by, they would remember what the Lord had done. Today, we may not raise physical stones in the wilderness, but we can still mark our moments with acts that carry spiritual weight. This, right now, is such a moment. Heaven has been speaking to you in whispers, in patterns, in divine interruptions that stop you mid-thought. These aren't coincidences. They are breadcrumbs leading you deeper into God's perfect path. And now, the Lord is inviting you to acknowledge this moment, not just privately in your heart, but with an outward sign. Why does God invite us to mark moments? Because we are forgetful creatures. Life gets loud. Responsibilities pile up. Storms come. And we forget the sunlight we once saw. But when you leave a marker, you give your future self a reminder. I was here. God was here. We agreed on something eternal that day. In Scripture, when Israel crossed the Jordan River, God told them to take 12 stones from the riverbed and build a memorial. Those stones were not just for decoration, they were for testimony. Whenever the next generation asked, "What do these stones mean?" the people could tell the story of God's faithfulness. Your act today can be like one of those stones, something that will speak not only to you, but to others. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. This is not passive stillness. It is the stillness of surrender. The peace of knowing you have marked your position in the battle as one standing with heaven. Stillness of surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of trust. It is laying down the weapons you forged for yourself and picking up the banner of victory that God has already prepared. In that stillness, the noise inside your mind begins to fade, and you start to hear the steady heartbeat of heaven's plan for you. This is the place where panic cannot live, where fear loses its grip, and where faith takes root so deeply that no storm can uproot it. In this stillness, you find clarity. The decisions that once felt tangled in confusion begin to separate into clear paths. You realize that God's instructions have been present all along, but the volume of your striving drowned them out. When you quiet your soul, you start to recognize the whispers of wisdom, the subtle nudges, and the divine timing that have always been guiding you. Stillness doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger in the unseen, where battles are truly won. And in this stillness, you begin to see God at work in places you never noticed before. Little coincidences turn into divine appointments. Delays reveal themselves as protection. Doors that closed suddenly make sense. And the ones that open do so without you forcing them. You start to realize that the battle was never yours to win by force. It was yours to witness as heaven moved on your behalf. Stillness becomes your shield, your watchtower, and your declaration, I trust the one who fights for me. Today, the marker is going to be a number, not just any number, but a prophetic one, 555. Why this number? Because in the language of the Spirit, 5 often represents grace. And triple grace is not just survival, it is overflowing, abundant, more than enough grace. This is heaven's way of saying, you are not only covered, you are drenched in my favor. By typing 555 in the comments, you are not engaging in superstition, you are declaring alignment with the season of grace God is ushering you into. You are saying, I receive the grace to rest. I receive the grace to release control. I receive the grace to walk forward without fear. Some may roll their eyes at a number in a comment box. But understand this, God often uses simple acts to unlock profound breakthroughs. Naaman was healed when he dipped 7 times in the river. The walls of Jericho fell after Israel marched in circles. The power is not in the act itself, it's in the obedience to do it when heaven prompts you. When you type 555, think of it as writing your name on a covenant. You are agreeing to step out of the exhausting cycle of self-effort and into the divine flow of grace. And grace is not just a covering for your past, it is fuel for your future. Grace will carry you through battles you don't even see coming. Grace will position you for opportunities you didn't think you deserved. Grace will hold you steady in seasons when others fall away. And grace will remind you that you are loved. Not because of your performance, but because of who your Father is, beloved, chosen one. You may not feel ready for the future, but grace makes you ready. You may not see how the pieces will fit, but grace is already arranging them. You may think you've reached your limit, but grace extends the borders of your strength. When you declare 555, you are not just acknowledging God's grace, you are stepping into it fully. You are choosing to believe that no matter how unpredictable life becomes, His grace will be your constant. You are making the conscious decision to stop relying on what you can control and start relying on what only heaven can provide. And in the days to come, when doubt tries to creep in, you will remember this moment. You will remember that you didn't just think about grace, you claimed it. You spoke it. You marked it. So let the number 555 be your stone of remembrance today. Let it stand as your testimony that on this day, you stopped fighting in your own strength and surrendered to the flood of grace that heaven has been waiting to pour over you. Mark the moment. Chosen one. Heaven has. Recognizing the divine hand at work is one of the greatest shifts in perception a chosen one can experience. It transforms how you see your past, how you interpret your present, and how you step into your future. Without this awareness, life can seem random, like a chaotic sequence of events strung together by chance. But when your eyes are open to the fingerprints of heaven, you begin to see that nothing is ever truly random. This recognition rarely happens all at once. Often, it begins with small realizations, a conversation that came at the perfect time, a door that closed just before disaster struck, a delay that protected you from harm. In the moment, these things may feel frustrating or even painful, but later, when you look back, you realize that God's hand was quietly arranging each step. The divine hand does not always move in ways we expect. Sometimes it works through what appears to be loss, detour, or disappointment. It is only with time that the pattern begins to emerge. Like a master weaver, God threads both light and dark strands into the tapestry of your life, creating something beautiful that could not exist with only one shade. This awareness changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of reacting with panic, you start to pause and ask, what might God be doing here? You realize that even if you cannot control the situation, you can trust the one who does. This trust doesn't make pain disappear, but it gives you peace in the middle of it. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Recognizing God's hand gives you that sound mind. Fear may knock on your door, but you are less likely to open it when you know heaven is already in the room. You begin to see divine patterns everywhere. What once felt like coincidence starts to feel like orchestration. A friend calls you with exactly the encouragement you needed. An unexpected opportunity appears just as you were about to give up. A sudden thought reminds you to check something, and in doing so, you avoid a costly mistake. These moments are not random, they are the quiet, deliberate movements of the divine hand guiding you forward. Even in seasons of silence, when God's presence feels distant, His hand is still at work. Think of a seed buried in the soil. To the outside observer, nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, life is forming. Roots are growing, and the future is being prepared. Many of God's works in your life are like that, hidden for a time, but essential for what is to come. There is also a humility that comes with recognizing God's hand. You stop taking credit for things you could never have arranged on your own. Yes, you worked hard, but the opportunities, the protection, the timing, those belong to Him. This humility doesn't diminish your value. It actually elevates your purpose, because you realize you are part of something much larger than yourself. Recognizing His hand also deepens your gratitude. You start thanking God not only for the obvious blessings, but for the closed doors, the delays, and even the disruptions. Gratitude becomes your default posture, because you know that even in the detours, His plans for you are good. Over time, this awareness becomes a lens through which you see everything. The good days feel like gifts, the hard days feel like training grounds, and the in-between days feel like the quiet chapters where the author is setting up the next plot twist. You also learn to trust the pace of God's hand. Sometimes, He moves quickly, opening doors, releasing answers, arranging divine connections in a matter of days. Other times, His movements are slow and deliberate, teaching you patience and building your endurance. Both speeds are intentional. Both are for your good. When you live with this awareness, your prayers shift. You stop praying only for God to change your circumstances and start praying for Him to align your perception with His perspective. You ask to see His hand in the situation, to recognize His work even when it doesn't match your expectations. And when you see it, you are filled with a peace that doesn't make sense to the world around you. Beloved chosen one, the divine hand is not only behind you in your past, it is ahead of you in your future. Even now, God is arranging meetings you don't know you'll need, preparing opportunities that will arrive at the exact right time, and setting up protection for battles you haven't yet faced. The more you recognize His hand, the less you feel the need to control everything. You learn that your role is not to force the outcome, but to stay close to the one whose hand holds it. That closeness gives you stability, no matter how unpredictable the path becomes. And perhaps the greatest gift of recognizing the divine hand is this: it allows you to rest. You can rest knowing you are not walking through life alone. You can rest knowing that every chapter of your story is in the care of a master author who writes with perfect precision. You can rest knowing that even the parts you don't understand today will someday make sense in the light of his presence. So, walk forward with open eyes. Chosen one. The divine hand has been with you all along. It is here now, and it will never let you go. There comes a point in the life of every chosen one when the strength you thought you had runs dry. You wake up one morning and realize the reserves you've been drawing from are gone. The determination that once pushed you through obstacles now feels thin. Even the prayers you used to speak with confidence feel heavy on your tongue. This is the moment when many are tempted to think they've failed, that they've reached the end of their usefulness. But in reality, it is often the exact moment when God's strength is about to be revealed in its purest form. Running out of strength is not the same as being abandoned by God. On the contrary, it can be a sign that you are closer to Him than you've ever been. Human strength can take you far, but it cannot carry you through the mountains God has called you to climb. At some point, your muscles will give out, your strategies will fall short, and your willpower will hit its limits. That is not weakness, it is the natural boundary of human effort. And it is precisely at that boundary that the supernatural begins. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 2, verse 31, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Notice that this promise is not made to those who never grow tired. It is made to those who wait on the Lord when they do. The weariness is not the end. It is the gateway to renewal. When your strength runs dry, you are in the perfect position to experience the exchange. Isaiah speaks of your weakness for his strength, your fatigue for his endurance, your inability for his capability. God does not need your stamina to fulfill his plans. He needs your surrender. When you stop trying to power through on your own, you make space for him to infuse you with something beyond human capacity. Think of Elijah after his great victory on Mount Carmel. The prophet had just called down fire from heaven. Yet only a chapter later, we find him exhausted, discouraged, and hiding in the wilderness. He had nothing left to give. But instead of rebuking him, God sent an angel to feed him, telling him to rest. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do when your strength is gone is not to push harder, but to allow yourself to be replenished. This is why God often allows his chosen to come to the end of their own resources. It is in that emptiness that we learn where true strength comes from. We begin to understand that our value to God was never in our ability to perform or to endure without pause. Our value is in our willingness to remain in him, to trust him when our hands can no longer grip the sword. Running out of strength also forces us to re-examine what we've been carrying. Sometimes the exhaustion comes not from the battles God assigned us, but from the ones we picked up on our own. In the quiet moments when you feel drained, God will often reveal which weights were never meant for you to carry in the first place. He lightens the load, not only by giving you his power, but by removing the burdens that were never yours. It's important to remember that the absence of strength is not the absence of purpose. A wounded soldier is still a soldier. A weary runner is still in the race. The difference is that now you are learning to let God pace you instead of trying to set your own speed. This shift is essential for longevity. Without it, burnout is inevitable. With it, your journey can continue with supernatural endurance. The moment you acknowledge your emptiness, you open the door to God's fullness. It is a humbling exchange, because it requires admitting you can't do it all. But humility is the soil where divine strength grows. Pride resists help. Humility receives it freely. And when you receive, you discover a strength that doesn't just carry you, it transforms you. In this transformation, your perspective shifts. You begin to see challenges not as threats to your survival, but as opportunities for God to show Himself strong. You stop measuring your capacity by your energy level and start measuring it by His promises. You no longer wake up asking, "Do I have what it takes today?" But instead, "What will God provide for me today?" And here is the beautiful irony. When you stop relying on your own strength, you often find that more gets accomplished. That's because divine strength is not limited by fatigue, fear, or uncertainty. It operates from a place of infinite supply. You move from striving to flowing, from surviving to thriving. Beloved, chosen one. If you are in a season where you feel like you have nothing left, take heart. This is not your ending, it is your turning point. God is not looking for you to muster a final burst of energy. He is waiting for you to lean into Him completely. And when you do, you will find that the well of His strength never runs dry. Your strength running out is not a sign you are unworthy. It is a sign you are ready for the next level. The wilderness is where you are prepared for the mountain. The night is where you learn to trust the sunrise. The emptiness is where you discover the God who fills. So, breathe, rest, wait, and when you rise, it will not be in your own power. It will be on wings like eagles, carried by the one who never grows tired, never falters, and never leaves you behind. There are moments when the Spirit speaks so clearly that your heart knows it is time to respond, not later, not eventually, but now. You feel it in your chest, that stirring, that urgency. It's not an emotional rush, it's the undeniable pull of heaven saying, "Stand in agreement with me." This is one of those moments when God calls for a response. It's never because He needs your confirmation to act. He is God. He can do all things. But there is something powerful about agreement. Agreement aligns you with the flow of heaven's will. It's like turning the sail of your ship into the wind instead of against it. The moment you agree, you start moving in the same direction as His purpose. Some people hesitate to respond because they think it's just a small gesture, almost symbolic to the point of insignificance. But if you read Scripture closely, you'll find that God often uses small acts to release great power. Moses stretching his staff over the sea, the widow pouring oil into jars, the boy offering his lunch of 5 loaves and 2 fish. None of these actions were enough to cause the miracle on their own, but they became the vessel through which heaven moved. That's what your response today can be, a vessel. A simple act of obedience that heaven can breathe on. And when heaven breathes on something, it doesn't matter how small it is, it becomes enough. Scripture says in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." The peace Jesus offers isn't passive, it's an active, stabilizing force. When you agree with him in moments like this, you're not just accepting a thought, you're welcoming his peace into your present and your future. Beloved, there's another reason this response matters. Words spoken in agreement with God carry spiritual authority. You are not just typing into a comment box, you are declaring into the spirit realm that you are aligned with the purposes of heaven. Angels respond to that. Darkness trembles at that. When you speak in alignment with God's truth, your words become more than sound. They become spiritual assignments. They travel into places you cannot see, opening doors that were stuck and closing gates the enemy tried to force open. The atmosphere around you begins to shift because heaven honors agreement with its own decrees. That is why the prophets spoke with boldness, not because they trusted their own ability, but because they knew the words they carried were rooted in God's authority, not their own. This is also why silence can be dangerous in a moment like this. When the Spirit stirs your heart to speak or declare, and you hold back, you leave the field of battle without drawing your sword. The enemy is not intimidated by unspoken faith. He is defeated by spoken truth. Your declaration becomes a weapon in your hand, one forged in the fire of heaven's presence, sharpened by the Spirit, and released with the force of divine backing. Even the angels are moved to action by such alignment. Scripture describes them as ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation. When your words echo heaven's will, you are effectively giving angels their marching orders over your situation. The unseen army begins to position itself, blocking what needs to be blocked, clearing the way where it was once obstructed. That is why your yes in the Spirit is never wasted. It mobilizes heaven itself on your behalf. And so, in this moment, I'm inviting you into something simple yet deeply prophetic. When you comment today, keep it short, under 4 words. Let it be clear, bold, and without hesitation. The phrase is, I choose victory. And 2, why this phrase? Because victory is not just an outcome, it's an identity. In Christ, you fight from victory, not for victory. You are declaring that no matter what battle you are in, the end result has already been secured by His cross and resurrection. You are choosing to stand in the finished work rather than in the uncertainty of the moment. Typing, I choose victory, is more than optimism. It's spiritual positioning. You are saying to heaven, I am standing where you have already won. You are saying to the enemy, your threats are empty because the outcome has been decided. You are saying to yourself, I will walk like someone who knows the end of the story. Some of you need to make this declaration today because your current situation looks nothing like victory. That's exactly when declarations matter most, when you speak them into the dark before the light breaks through. Faith is not waiting to see and then believing. Faith is believing before you see. So let your words today be seeds. Type them as an act of planting, knowing that the harvest will come in its season. And when that harvest comes, you will be able to look back and say, I marked that moment. I chose victory before it arrived. And now I'm walking in it. And here's the beauty. Your declaration might inspire someone else to choose victory as well. Just as this word is reaching you, your faith can reach others. That's how heaven multiplies its work, one agreement at a time, one declaration at a time, until an entire army of chosen ones is standing in unshakable faith together. So take this moment seriously. Beloved, Don't let hesitation rob you of the chance to put your faith into words. Heaven is listening. The spirit realm is watching. And your own heart will thank you for drawing this line in the sand. Comment it. Mean it. Stand on it. I choose victory. Chosen one. There are seasons when God is not only speaking to you, but inviting you to partner with Him in something bigger than your own journey. What He's pouring into you is not meant to stay confined within your heart. It is meant to move, to multiply, to find its way into the lives of others who are still in the dark valleys you've walked through. This is one of those seasons when you've received a word that breathes life into your spirit. The most powerful next step is to share it. Sharing is not about promoting a message, it's about carrying a torch into places where the fire has gone out. It's about being the messenger who knocks on someone else's locked door with the very hope they've been praying for. Some of you know exactly who in your life needs to hear what you've just heard. You've been praying for them, watching them struggle, wishing you could say the right thing. This is your opportunity to let heaven speak through your willingness. A simple share could be the thing that breaks through their weariness, the thing that causes them to lift their eyes again. When you like a message like this, it may seem small, but in this digital space, it's a way of saying, this matters. This needs to be seen. That single click helps the light travel further, reaching people you'll never meet face to face. It's not just an online action, it's a tiny act of evangelism. And when you subscribe, you're not just joining a list, you're choosing to stay in the flow of what God is releasing here. In a world full of noise and distraction, staying connected to a consistent stream of encouragement and direction is like keeping a steady supply of oil for your lamp. You never know when the next word will be the exact confirmation or strength you've been asking God for. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 25, verse 11, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. This is what the right message at the right time can be, pure treasure to a weary heart. If this word has been that for you, imagine what it could be for someone else if you put it in their hands. Beloved, we live in a time where your voice can travel further than your feet ever could. You don't have to stand in a pulpit to be a messenger. You can be in your kitchen, your office, or on your commute, and still send light across cities and nations. Every like, every share, every subscription is a way of saying, I am part of what God is doing here. And this is where the beauty of obedience in the digital age shines. God has given you access to tools the apostles of old could never have imagined, platforms where one act of faith can leap across borders in seconds. What you choose to amplify with your voice and your clicks becomes part of your testimony. You are no longer just a receiver of the word, you are a transmitter, allowing heaven's signal to reach those who may be tuning in for the very first time without even knowing it. The harvest field today includes timelines, inboxes, and feeds. These are the modern highways where people wander, often looking for something they can't name. And when you place a message like this in those spaces, you plant seeds in soil you may never personally walk upon. Some seeds will sprout instantly. Others will remain hidden until the right season. But all of them carry life. This is the quiet but powerful ministry of the chosen ones, scattering light where darkness assumed it reigned, unchallenged. And never think your effort is too small to matter. In God's economy, size is never the measure of impact. Faithfulness is. A shared post can reach the weary mother at her kitchen table, the discouraged young man scrolling late at night, the elder feeling forgotten. It can be the nudge that leads them back into prayer, the whisper that tells them they're not alone. Every click, every share, every subscription is like lighting a candle and placing it in a window for travelers in the night to see and be guided home. And the truth is, your involvement is not just for others, it's for you. 2. Staying connected to a community of chosen ones who hear, obey, and encourage each other strengthens your own walk. It reminds you that you are not running alone, not fighting alone, not believing alone. Some of you have felt isolated in your faith, like no one around you truly understands what God is doing in your life. That's why staying connected matters. It places you in a circle of voices that will remind you of your identity when the world tries to make you forget. So here's my heart in this. I'm not asking for engagement as a routine request. I'm inviting you into partnership. If you believe in the light God is shining through this message, then help carry it further. Click like as a sign of agreement. Share it as an act of generosity. Subscribe, so you remain part of the unfolding conversation heaven is having with his people here. Because you never know. Chosen one, your simple act of sharing could be the reason someone else doesn't give up tonight. Your subscription could keep you in the loop for the exact word you'll need in your next battle. Your like could be the spark that helps this message find the person who's been crying out in secret for a sign. Let's not underestimate the ripple effect of obedience in small things. What starts here could travel far beyond what you will ever see, but heaven will record every step of it. And when the fruit comes, whether in your life or someone else's, you will know you played a part in the harvest. So, as a chosen one, let's walk together in this. Engage, share, stay connected, not for the sake of numbers, but for the sake of lives. There is a sacred mystery in the silence before the miracle. For most, silence feels like absence. But for the chosen ones, it is often the space where God is doing his most intricate work. The world teaches that momentum means movement, that progress must always be visible. But heaven does not operate by human metrics. Some of God's greatest works are formed in quiet, hidden places before they are revealed in the open. The silence is a test, not in the sense of punishment, but in the sense of refining. It asks the question, can you still believe when there is nothing to see? Can you still hold the promise in your heart when there is no sign in your hands? In these moments, faith ceases to be a feeling and becomes a choice. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 40, verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. Patience here is not passive. It is an active posture of trust, an inner stillness that resists the urge to run ahead of God's timing. During the silence, heaven is not ignoring you. It is orchestrating details you could not arrange if you tried. The right people are being positioned. The resources are being prepared. The circumstances are aligning in ways that will only make sense in hindsight. The silence is not empty. It is full of unseen motion. Like the backstage of a grand performance, the silent season is where all the unseen preparation takes place. You may not hear the movement or see the changes, but every prop is being placed, every light adjusted, every role rehearsed. When the curtain finally rises, you will realize nothing was random. Every detail was set for the exact moment of your reveal. Even delays that frustrate you now may turn out to be the very things that protect you later. A meeting postponed could save you from walking into the wrong agreement. A door that won't open might be shielding you from a path that would have drained your spirit. In the silence, God is weaving both protection and preparation into the unseen fabric of your destiny. Think of the seed beneath the soil. For weeks, perhaps months, nothing breaks the surface. To the impatient observer, it seems as if nothing is happening. But beneath the ground, the seed is splitting open. Roots are pushing downward. Life is being established. When the sprout finally emerges, it is not the beginning of life. It is the visible evidence of what has been alive and growing all along. This is why the silence before the miracle can feel so heavy. Your spirit senses that something is happening, but your eyes see nothing. It creates a tension that only trust can hold. And this trust is not blind, it is anchored in the character of God, who has never once failed to keep his word. In the silence, God often works on the heart of the chosen one. Sometimes the delay is not about external circumstances at all. It is about shaping the person who will carry the miracle once it comes. The waiting becomes a refining fire, burning away impatience, fear, and doubt, and replacing them with endurance, wisdom, and resilience. If you are in a silent season right now, resist the temptation to fill it with noise. Noise can come in many forms: constant activity, endless conversations, the compulsive need to solve every problem immediately. While some action is necessary, the silence is meant to slow you enough to hear the quieter voice of the Spirit. If you drown it out, you risk missing the very instructions you will need when the miracle arrives. One of the most difficult things to accept is that God's silence is sometimes the answer, not because he refuses to speak, but because his timing to act has not yet come. In those moments, his lack of new instructions is actually a sign to keep holding the last word he gave you. It is an invitation to anchor yourself in what you already know, rather than chasing constant confirmation. When you look through Scripture, you will see that many of God's greatest moves were preceded by silence. There were 400 years between the last prophecy of the Old Testament and the arrival of Jesus. The disciples waited in an upper room for days after Jesus told them the Holy Spirit was coming. In each case, the silence was not wasted. It was the womb where the promise was being formed. Beloved chosen one, the silence before your miracle is not a void, it is a preparation. You are being positioned in ways you cannot yet comprehend. The very absence of visible progress is a sign that God is at work in realms you cannot see. Trust this. There will come a moment when the silence breaks, not with a whisper, but with the unmistakable sound of fulfillment. The door will open. The answer will arrive. The breakthrough will manifest, and you will understand why the waiting was necessary. Until then, your role is to remain steady, to keep your heart aligned, and to guard your hope fiercely. Hope is the anchor in this season. Without it, silence feels like abandonment. With it, silence becomes sacred space. And when the miracle comes, that hope will turn into praise that is richer because it was forged in the waiting. So if you find yourself in the quiet before the miracle, take heart. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared for the moment when heaven will move in such a way that everyone will know it could only have been God. Chosen one, every step you have taken has been leading you to this point, not just a chapter in your journey, but a threshold in the Spirit. You have been walking through seasons where God's hand was guiding you, even when you didn't feel it. There have been battles you fought that left you weary, And there have been victories you didn't even recognize because they came quietly. But today, heaven is calling you to mark this exact moment in a way that is more than symbolic. It is prophetic. Throughout Scripture, God's people marked pivotal moments. They built altars. They sang songs. They wrote down the works of the Lord so future generations would remember. In our day, these markers can take many forms. They can be a journal entry, a whispered prayer, an act of generosity, or something as simple as a shared declaration in public view. These acts don't just commemorate the moment, they seal it. They stand as a witness in the spirit that you were here, you heard, and you responded. This is one of those moments. Heaven is asking for a visible sign of your agreement with what God is doing, not because he needs proof, but because your own heart needs the reminder. Days will come when doubt whispers louder than faith, and you will need to remember the day you stood and said, "Yes, Lord, I'm in step with you." When you give a visible response, you're creating a landmark in your journey, a place you can look back to when the road ahead feels uncertain. It's like driving through a long stretch of wilderness and remembering the mile marker that told you you're still on the right path. This marker becomes your anchor in the seasons when faith feels fragile, reminding you that you once stood in full agreement with heaven's plan for your life. Your heart, like soil, needs these markers to hold the seeds of faith in place. Without them, the winds of worry and fear can scatter what God has planted. But with each marker, your soul remembers its direction. It says, "I've been here before, and God was faithful then. He will be faithful now." That's why this small act of agreement today will carry weight in moments you haven't yet faced. These reminders also silence the enemy's accusations. When he tries to tell you that you're alone or abandoned, you can point back to this very moment and declare, "No, I am aligned with God, and he is with me." It's more than a memory, it's a record in the spiritual realm. Heaven saw your step of faith. Angels marked it, and the enemy will find no ground where covenant has already been claimed. It was proclaimed in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 8. "The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged." That promise is not just for the moment you first heard it, it's for today. And for every day after this. The prophetic act I'm asking of you today is to comment the number 888. This number, in the language of the Spirit, represents new beginnings, multiplied. 1/8 is a fresh start. 3 8s is the fullness of that newness, overflowing into every part of your life. By typing 888, you are declaring that you are stepping into a cycle where the old has passed away and the new has fully arrived. This is not a superstition. It is a covenant marker. You are putting your agreement into writing, not on paper, but in a place where your words stand as testimony. You're saying, "I receive the new thing God is birthing in me. I choose to walk away from cycles that drained me, and I embrace the future He has prepared." When you type 888, picture it as striking a match in the spirit. It's a small movement here, but it sends light into realms you can't see. It tells heaven that you are ready. It tells the enemy that you are off limits. And it tells your own soul, "I am moving forward from this day on." Some will see this number and scroll past without understanding. But you, chosen one, understand that faith often looks foolish to the world before it proves itself in power. You understand that obedience, even in something small, can unlock something you could never have achieved in your own strength. Think of the Jordan River parting when the priests stepped into the water. The water didn't move until their feet touched it. The miracle was tied to the moment of action. Your 888 today is a step into that river. You may not see the waters move yet, but heaven already has. You may be wondering, why now? Why this? Because timing matters. If you wait for a more convenient moment, the urgency in your spirit will fade. The prophetic act loses some of its power when delayed, not because God becomes weaker, but because your heart loses the sharpness of its faith. Responding now means sealing this moment while it is still alive in your spirit. And do not think for a moment that God overlooks these acts. He sees them. He records them. He weaves them into your testimony. When the new season fully unfolds, you will look back and remember the moment you chose to align with it. You will say, "That was the day I crossed over." Beloved, type it. Mean it. Let 888 be your altar of remembrance today. This is not the end of your journey, but it is the end of the chapter where you questioned whether you could keep going. From here on, you move with a fresh wind, a fresh focus, and a fresh strength that only God could give. God's timing is one of the most challenging aspects of walking in faith. We are born into a world that moves by clocks and calendars, yet heaven operates on seasons and divine appointments. You can schedule an event, but you cannot schedule a miracle. You can set a deadline, but you cannot dictate when God chooses to move. And for the chosen ones, learning to live at the pace of heaven is one of the greatest tests and greatest freedoms you will ever experience. There is a rhythm to God's timing, a flow that does not bow to human urgency. It is not rushed by your fears, nor delayed by your impatience. From our perspective, it can feel unbearably slow or shockingly fast. But from His perspective, it is always perfect. The challenge is that our perspective is limited. We see a moment. He sees eternity. We see the next step. He sees the destination and every detail in between. This is why surrendering to God's timing is both humbling and liberating. It frees you from the exhausting pressure of trying to predict, control, or manipulate every outcome. When you accept that His view stretches beyond what you can see, you begin to live with a lighter heart. You stop interpreting delays as rejection and start seeing them as divine strategy. Instead of measuring life by the ticking of a clock, you measure it by the unfolding of His purpose, trusting that each moment, whether swift or slow, carries intentional design in the hands of the eternal, as Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 34. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. These words are not an invitation to neglect planning. They are an invitation to release control over the future that belongs to Him. When we demand that God moves on our timetable, we are essentially saying we trust our understanding of what's best more than His. But the truth is, our urgency is often fueled by fear, fear of missing out, fear of failure, fear of loss. God's timing is not driven by fear, it is driven by love. Every delay, every acceleration, is rooted in His knowledge of what will protect us, shape us, and position us for the fullness of His promise. Think of the story of Lazarus. When Jesus heard that his friend was sick, he didn't rush to heal him immediately. He waited. From the human perspective, that delay seemed cruel. But when Jesus finally arrived, he didn't just heal Lazarus, he raised him from the dead. The delay was not neglect. It was preparation for a greater miracle in our own lives. The waiting often feels like wasted time. We measure progress by visible change, but God measures it by internal transformation. Sometimes the very thing you are waiting for is being shaped by the waiting itself. Your character is deepened. Your faith is fortified. Your vision is clarified. And when the appointed time comes, you are ready to carry the weight of the blessing without it crushing you. There is also a protection in God's timing. Many times, we think we are ready for something, but we have not yet seen the full scope of the challenges it will bring. God, in His mercy, may delay not to deny you, but to shield you from unnecessary harm. What feels like a closed door may actually be His hand holding you back from walking into a trap. And yet, God's timing can also be sudden. There are seasons when you wait for years, and then, in a single day, everything changes. One conversation, one opportunity, one divine encounter, and the trajectory of your life shifts instantly. This is why it's important to stay ready in the waiting. You do not get advance notice for most breakthroughs. When they come, you must be in position to step through the door. Understanding God's timing requires trust in His nature. If you believe He is good, then you can trust that His timing is good, even when it feels inconvenient or painful. If you believe He is faithful, you can rest knowing that what He has promised will come to pass at the exact right moment. The tension comes in balancing faith and patience. Faith says, "It is mine now." Patience says, "I will wait for it to come in the right way." Both are true. Both are needed. The waiting does not mean you stop believing, and the believing does not mean you rush ahead of His pace. It is the balance of these two that keeps you steady. Beloved, chosen one, you are not behind schedule. You have not missed your moment. As long as you are in step with God, you are exactly where you are meant to be. Even the detours are part of the design. Even the delays are part of the preparation. You cannot be late to a destiny that God Himself has authored. If you find yourself anxious about the timing of your life, remember this: your role is obedience, not orchestration. You plant, you water, but it is God who brings the increase, and when He does, it will not be a moment too soon or a moment too late. It will be exactly when it is meant to be. When that moment arrives, it will make sense why you had to wait. You will see how every step, every delay, every redirection was necessary to bring you to the place where you could receive and steward the blessing. And you will realize that His timing was never the obstacle, it was the gift. There is a particular peace that comes when you realize God is already carrying you. It is not the peace of a calm environment, because the storms may still rage. It is not the peace of having all the answers, because many questions may remain. This peace is rooted in the awareness that your weight is no longer on your own shoulders. You are being held, upheld, and moved forward by a strength greater than your own. Recognizing that you are being carried changes the way you interpret your circumstances. Instead of feeling the crushing pressure to control every outcome, you begin to look for the signs of His sustaining hand. It might be in the conversation that lifts your spirit on a difficult day, in the unexpected provision that arrives just when you need it, or in the calm that settles over your heart without explanation. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 46, verse 4, "Even to your old age and grey hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you." These are not just poetic words, they are a covenant promise. God does not simply start your journey and leave you to finish it. He carries you through every season, from first breath to final step. When you are carried, you can endure seasons that would otherwise break you. You may not even realize, in the moment, how heavy the load is because His strength is doing the lifting. It's only when you look back that you recognize, I should not have made it through that, but I did, because He carried me. Being carried does not mean you are passive. A child in a parent's arms still trusts, still clings, still rests in the closeness. In the same way, you participate by remaining yielded to His direction. If you fight to jump down and run in your own way, you step out from the place of strength and into unnecessary struggle. Sometimes God carries you through people. He places encouragers in your path, sends help through unexpected hands, or speaks life into your spirit through someone's testimony. Other times, He carries you in ways invisible to everyone else. There are dangers you never saw because His hand blocked them. There are attacks you never felt because His presence shielded you. When you understand that you are being carried, you stop fearing collapse. You can walk into unknown situations without the weight of, "What if I fail?" because you know your success is not built on your own stamina, but on His faithfulness. You also stop measuring your worth by your ability to keep everything together. You are valuable not because you can handle everything alone, but because you belong to the One who holds you in His grasp. The carried life also redefines strength. Strength is not only in those who run the farthest or fight the hardest. It is also in those who know when to lean, when to rest, when to admit they cannot make it without help. There is a holy humility in being carried, and that humility makes room for even greater demonstrations of God's power in your life. Think of the footprints in the sand. Two sets become one during the hardest parts of the journey. Many have heard this imagery, but living it is different. In the moment, it may feel like abandonment because you no longer feel your own feet moving. But in reality, it is the opposite. You are in His arms, closer than ever, moving forward without exhausting yourself. Sometimes, being carried means God will move you faster than your own pace would allow. Other times, it means He will slow you down to protect you from rushing into something harmful. Either way, the movement is in His hands, and your role is to trust His speed. Beloved, chosen one, there is no safer place than in the arms of the One who made you. His grip is unshakable, His steps are sure, and His direction is perfect. You may still feel the winds and hear the thunder, but those things lose their power when you remember that you are not walking through them alone. In seasons when you feel weak, remind yourself that you have never truly been carrying yourself. Every breath, every step, every victory has been sustained by Him. If He has carried you this far, He will not set you down now. He will not abandon the work of His hands. You are not a burden to Him. You are the joy set before Him, worth carrying all the way to the finish. Rest in that truth, and let it free you from the pressure to perform, prove, or push beyond what grace is providing. The One who carries you is the same One who called you, and He will see you through. Chosen one. There are moments when the word you receive is not just meant to be kept in your heart, it is meant to be released into the world. This is one of those moments. If God's voice has stirred something deep within you today, then this is your opportunity to partner with heaven in making sure that word travels further than it could on its own. We sometimes underestimate how powerful our small actions can be. A click to like a message, a decision to share it, a quick comment, or a subscription to stay connected. These may feel ordinary, but in the kingdom, even the smallest seeds can produce a harvest. One gesture of agreement today could be the very thing that brings someone else the breakthrough they've been praying for in secret. When you like a message, it is more than just a tap on a screen, it is an act of agreement. You're saying, I stand with this truth. I receive it. That digital acknowledgement helps push the message into places where others can see it. It's a way of letting light reach further, of opening the door for someone else to encounter the same encouragement you just experienced. When you share a word, you become a messenger. You may not even realize the ripple effect you create. The person who sees your post might share it again, and then it might reach someone who is right at the edge of giving up. That person might find their hope restored, and in turn, they might go on to encourage someone else. Heaven measures obedience in impact, not in size. When you comment, you give the word a place to take root publicly. Your words might resonate with someone who is reading silently, unsure if this message is truly for them. Your testimony, or even a short statement of agreement, can be the confirmation they need to step into faith. And when you subscribe, you are not just adding yourself to a list, you are making a decision to stay in step with what God is releasing here. You're choosing to keep the connection open so you can receive the next word, the next confirmation, the next prophetic push forward. It's about being ready for the ongoing conversation heaven is having with you. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 68, verse 11, the Lord announces the word, the women who proclaim it are a mighty throng. Notice how the word begins with God, but then it spreads through those willing to carry it. The same pattern is happening here. You are being invited to be part of the throng that carries His message further. When you see yourself as part of that throng, you begin to realize you're not just a listener, you're a carrier. Carriers don't keep what they've been entrusted with. They deliver it faithfully to its next destination. And sometimes, that destination is a friend, a stranger online, or even someone who didn't know they were searching. You might never see the look on their face when the word reaches them, but heaven does, and it rejoices every time the light moves forward. Carrying the word also changes how you listen. You no longer just consume for your own encouragement. You begin to listen with the ears of a messenger. You think, who else needs to hear this? Who could this strengthen? Your mind starts scanning the faces of friends, family, or co-workers who might be in a silent battle. That awareness makes you intentional, not just in receiving truth, but in making sure it multiplies beyond you. In the kingdom, multiplication is a mark of fruitfulness. What God gives you is always more than enough for yourself. It's meant to overflow, like the loaves and fish in the hands of Jesus. The word you've received can be broken, shared, and still remain abundant. The act of sharing doesn't diminish what you have, it expands it. Your faith grows, your joy deepens, and your vision widens when you see how far God can take something as simple as your obedience. You also step into spiritual alignment when you carry His word forward. Scripture shows us that when people partnered with the message, they often became part of the miracle themselves. The boy with the bread became part of feeding thousands. The woman at the well became part of bringing her whole town to meet Jesus. And now, in this generation, you have the same opportunity to take what God has given and release it into the world, knowing it will return, multiplied. This is why I'm asking you to engage now, not later. Delaying often dulls the urgency you feel in the moment. While the word is still fresh, while your spirit is still stirred, respond in a way that keeps the momentum moving. Like it, share it, comment to give others courage. Subscribe so you remain in the flow. You never know who is on the other side of your obedience. It could be a family member who needs a reminder of God's faithfulness. It could be a friend quietly struggling. It could be a complete stranger halfway across the world whose heart is crying out for confirmation. Your action could be the answer to their prayer. And here's the beauty. You don't need to know the full impact of your action to take it. Faith often requires planting seeds in fields you will never personally walk through. You trust that God will water, grow, and harvest what you've sown in His perfect time. Beloved, chosen one, if this word has resonated with you, then join in carrying it further. Let's see it reach the weary, the broken, the ones who feel forgotten. Let's use every tool we have, yes, even these small digital tools, to be part of heaven's work. Like, share, comment, subscribe, not for numbers, but for lives. There are seasons when God seems to delay the very rescue you have been praying for. It can feel confusing, even painful, to know that He has the power to change your situation instantly. Yet He chooses to wait. In these moments, the temptation is to interpret the delay as disinterest, or worse, abandonment. But for the chosen ones, every delay has a purpose, even if it is hidden from view. Heaven's perspective on rescue is different from ours. We tend to define rescue as immediate relief, an escape from the pressure, the lifting of the burden, the end of the struggle. God, however, defines rescue in terms of eternal good. Sometimes that means stepping in instantly. Other times, it means allowing the struggle to continue for a season so that deeper work can be accomplished within us and around us. When God allows the struggle to remain, it often becomes the very tool that shapes us into who we must become for the next chapter. The waiting sharpens our perspective, teaching us to value the eternal over the temporary. It forges a deeper resilience that no easy escape could ever produce. And while our natural desire is to get out quickly, heaven's priority is to prepare us fully so that when the rescue comes, we are not only free from the trial, but also ready to walk in the greater responsibility it leads to. Sometimes, the prolonged season of difficulty is also for the sake of others connected to your journey. God may be writing a testimony that will strengthen someone else, and that testimony requires you to remain in the process until its full weight is revealed. The rescue, when it comes, will not only affirm your faith, but will also become a living demonstration to others that His timing is intentional and His methods are perfect. In this way, your delayed deliverance becomes a seed of hope planted in many hearts. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the revelation awaits its time, it speaks of the end. Not false, though it linger, wait for it, it will surely come, not delay." The word linger here speaks to our perception of slowness, but God reassures us that his timing is exact. Delays in rescue often serve to strengthen faith. When help comes immediately, our gratitude can be shallow and short-lived. But when we have to wait, leaning on God day by day, our trust deepens. We learn to draw from him as our daily bread, rather than treating him as a last-minute emergency escape. The process develops spiritual endurance, which is essential for carrying the greater responsibilities. He is preparing for us. Another reason heaven sometimes delays rescue is to reveal what is hidden. Pressures have a way of exposing things in us, both weaknesses that need healing and strengths we didn't know we had. In the waiting, motives are refined, priorities are reordered, and our dependence on lesser supports is stripped away until God is our sole foundation. Delays can also align us with others whose roles are essential to the story God is writing. Your deliverance may be tied to someone else's obedience, just as theirs may be tied to yours. God often weaves multiple lives together in a way that maximizes the impact of a single breakthrough. If he moves too soon, the fullness of that divine coordination might be lost. Think of Joseph in Egypt. His rescue from prison was delayed not because God had forgotten him, but because the right moment had not yet come. When Pharaoh's dream needed interpretation, Joseph was ready, and the delay positioned him to not only be freed, but also elevated to a place of authority that saved an entire nation. The rescue was greater because it was later. This understanding doesn't make waiting easy. The human heart still aches under pressure. Tears still come. Prayers still feel urgent. But knowing that God's delays are not denials gives us a foundation to stand on when emotions try to pull us under. We can say, if he is waiting, there must be something I cannot yet see. During delayed rescue, God's presence is the sustaining factor. Even when he does not change the circumstances immediately, he strengthens us to endure them. He sends encouragement in unexpected ways, a timely conversation, a passage of scripture, a sudden wave of peace in the middle of a storm. These are reminders that while the rescue is in process, the rescuer is already here. Delayed rescue also sharpens our discernment. When the answer finally comes, we are more aware of what truly matters and less distracted by things that once consumed our focus. We emerge with a clearer vision and a steadier heart. Below, chosen one. If you are in a place where you've been asking for rescue and it hasn't come, take courage. The absence of immediate relief is not the absence of God's hand. It may be that he is preparing something greater than you have asked, for something that will not only lift you out, but also set you in a place you could never have reached on your own. Your story is not stalled. It is being crafted with precision. Every moment of waiting is part of the divine strategy to bring about a rescue that will glorify him and bless you beyond the limits of your request. Trust the process. Even when the process is silent, trust the rescuer. Even when the rescue is not yet in sight, when the appointed time comes, it will arrive suddenly. The doors will open, the weight will lift, and you will understand why the delay was necessary. Until then, hold to the truth that his timing is perfect. His plans are good, and his presence is enough to sustain you every step of the way. There is a kind of strength you do not know you have until life forces you to find it. It is not the loud, aggressive strength that shouts in victory. It is the quiet, unyielding strength that wakes up every morning and decides to keep going. For the chosen ones, This hidden strength is often forged in seasons of difficulty, refined by waiting, and revealed in moments when quitting would be the easier choice. This strength is not about personality or natural toughness. Some of the strongest warriors in the kingdom have tender hearts that feel deeply. It is not about being unaffected by hardship. It is about feeling the weight of it fully and still choosing to stand. It is not about being fearless. It is about standing firm, despite fear. This kind of strength is often quiet and unseen, growing in the hidden places where no one is watching. It doesn't seek applause or recognition because it is born in the secret conversations between you and God, moments when you've cried out in weakness and felt His presence steady your heart. It is the strength that chooses kindness when bitterness would be easier, that keeps showing up when others have walked away, that believes in His promises even when the evidence seems absent. It is a strength that endures because its source is eternal, not temporary. We find in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, "I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength." Notice that the verse does not say through my own determination or through my personal skills, but through Christ. The strength you didn't know you had is not self-generated, it is God-breathed. Often, this strength is revealed in hindsight. While you are in the midst of the struggle, you may not feel strong at all. You may feel like you are barely holding on. But when the storm passes and you look back, you realize that you stood in the middle of it without being swept away. That's when you recognize the resilience that was quietly growing inside you all along. Sometimes this strength emerges in small acts, making the call you have been dreading, showing up to work despite the weight in your chest, forgiving someone who hurt you deeply, choosing to pray when you feel like God is silent. These moments may seem insignificant to others, but in the spirit, they are acts of profound victory. It is also a strength that often surprises those around you. People who underestimate you based on what they see on the surface are often unprepared for the endurance you carry within. That's because this strength is not for show, it is for survival. It is the strength that gets you through nights of weeping until the morning comes. God allows situations to arise that draw this hidden strength to the surface, not to break you, but to reveal to you that He has been building you all along. Every challenge you have faced, every delay you have endured, every battle you have fought has been a training ground. It is important to understand that strength does not mean you never feel weak. In fact, acknowledging your weakness is what allows God's power to fill you. The paradox of kingdom strength is that it is most visible when we lean on Him the most. When you have nothing left and still move forward, that is evidence of His strength working through you. This strength you didn't know you had will carry you into assignments you once thought were impossible. It will hold you steady in storms that would have capsized you in the past. It will allow you to extend grace to others, even when you are under pressure yourself. Below, chosen one. Recognize that every trial has been shaping not just your faith, but also your capacity. You are stronger now than you were a year ago, not because life became easier, but because you have been exercising endurance. The situations that once shook you no longer hold the same power over you. The strength within you is not meant only for survival, it is meant for service. God strengthens you so you can strengthen others. Your testimony will become the encouragement someone else needs to keep going. Your resilience will become a living example of what it looks like to stand when the wind is against you. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about this strength is that it continues to grow. Every time you choose to stand in faith instead of fear, You add another layer. Every time you choose to worship in the middle of uncertainty, you add another measure. Over time, you will find that situations which once overwhelmed you now barely shake you. This does not mean life will stop being challenging, but it does mean that you will face those challenges with a steadiness you did not have before. You will enter future battles with the quiet confidence of someone who knows, "I've been through worse, and God carried me through it." So the next time you find yourself in the middle of a storm, remember this: the strength you have is not new. It has been growing in you for years. It is the sum of every moment you refuse to quit, every prayer you whispered through tears, every step you took in faith when fear told you to sit down. That strength will not fail you now, because it does not come from you. It comes from the one who never fails. Chosen one. There are certain moments in your journey that heaven marks as turning points, moments where your faith, your obedience, and your alignment with God's will come together like pieces of a divine puzzle. When these moments arrive, it is important not only to receive them, but to respond in a way that seals them in the Spirit. This is one of those moments when God moves in your life. He often invites you to make a visible declaration. This is not because he needs proof from you. He already knows your heart, but because you need reminders you can look back on when the journey ahead feels uncertain. A declaration becomes a memorial stone, a spiritual landmark that says, "I was here. I said yes. I am in agreement with heaven." These memorial stones are not just for you, they are for those who will walk with you and after you. When others see your faith documented and declared, it becomes a testimony they can draw courage from. Much like the Israelites who told their children about the stones taken from the Jordan River, your declaration today will one day be a story proof that you chose to trust God even when you could not see what was coming next. It will remind others that obedience in the moment creates legacy for the future. In times of doubt, these markers speak back to you with authority. They whisper, "You have been here before, and God was faithful then. He will be faithful now." They act as anchors when the waves of uncertainty try to pull you away from your calling. You might forget the details of the struggle, but you will remember the moment you stood in alignment and made it visible. That memory will keep you steady when everything else feels unstable. And in heaven's records, these declarations are never overlooked. They are written into the eternal story of your life as moments of covenant. God delights in your private trust, but he also honors your public faith. When you declare alignment openly, you not only confirm it to yourself, you release it into the atmosphere. That spoken or written agreement carries spiritual authority, shaping outcomes, shifting seasons, and sending a clear signal into realms you cannot see, but are very much influencing. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 8, verse 31, still echo today. If God is for us, who can be against us? This is the confidence you stand on as a chosen one, not arrogance, but assurance that your life is wrapped in the protection, provision, and purpose of the Almighty. And today, that confidence needs to be spoken, not just felt. The prophetic act for this moment is to comment the number 222. Why this number? In the language of biblical symbolism, 2 often represents agreement, unity, and confirmation. Triple twos signify a complete and perfect alignment between heaven and earth. Your will in harmony with God's. Your steps matching his pace. Your life positioned for his promises. By declaring 222, You are saying, I stand in full agreement with what God is doing in my life right now. This is not a superstition, it is an act of covenant. Just as the priests in the Old Testament would stand in the temple as a visible sign of their dedication, your comment today is a public expression of your spiritual posture. It tells heaven, I am aligned. It tells the enemy, I cannot be moved. And it tells your own soul, I will not break rank with the will of God. Sometimes we underestimate the power of simple obedience. Naaman almost missed his healing because the prophet's instructions seemed too simple, just wash in the Jordan 7 times. But when he finally obeyed, the miracle came. In the same way, your 222 today may seem small, but in the spirit realm, it is a key, unlocking doors you have been praying about for months or even years. As you type it, let it be more than just numbers on a screen. See it as the sound of your faith, speaking into the unseen. Feel it as the seal on a chapter. God is closing and the opening of the next one. Let it carry weight in your spirit. Beloved, chosen one. You may be in a season where the path ahead looks unclear. You may feel like you are walking without a map. But 222 is your declaration that you trust the guide more than the path. It is your way of saying, even when I cannot see the whole picture, I choose alignment over understanding. And here is the beauty: alignment brings acceleration. When you are in step with God, you do not have to force doors open. They open as you arrive. You do not have to chase blessings. They find you because you are walking in the flow of His will. Your declaration today is not just about now. It is about positioning yourself for everything that comes next. Some will see this and ignore it, thinking it's just a number. But for those who understand the language of the Spirit, this is a prophetic signal. Heaven hears it. Angels respond to it. The atmosphere around you begins to shift because you have put your agreement into writing. So, chosen one. Type 222. Type it as a statement of unity with God's heart. Type it as a marker in your journey. Type it as a key that unlocks what has been waiting for you in the next chapter of your life. And when you look back, you will remember this moment, not for the number itself, but for the faith it represented and the shift it initiated. There is a truth that every chosen one must eventually accept. The battle is not yours. This does not mean you are exempt from the fight, but it does mean the outcome is not determined by your strength, your strategy, or your stamina. The real weight of the victory rests in the hands of the one who called you into the battle in the first place. When you understand this, the pressure you've been carrying begins to lift. You realize that your role is not to control every move, but to stay obedient, alert, and in position. The victory belongs to the Lord, and your job is to partner with Him, not to replace Him. This shift in understanding is like dropping a weight you didn't realize you were carrying. Suddenly, the constant mental strain of strategizing every outcome begins to fade. You start breathing deeper, moving lighter, because you know the one leading you is never caught off guard. The fear of what if loses its grip, replaced by the quiet confidence of God will. You're no longer running on adrenaline but walking in assurance, trusting His pace even when you don't fully see the road ahead. In that place of trust, your spirit becomes more sensitive to His voice. You begin to recognize His nudges, not just in grand moments, but in the small, almost invisible shifts around you. You see His fingerprints in the timing of a conversation, the arrival of unexpected help, or the sudden peace that settles in your heart mid-battle. These are not coincidences. They're reminders that you are not fighting alone. Every step, every pause, every redirection is guided by the one who already holds the victory. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Stillness in this context is not laziness or avoidance. It is the intentional choice to rest in God's power while remaining available for His instructions. Throughout history, God has demonstrated that He often wins battles in ways that make it clear the victory could not have been achieved by human means. When Israel faced the walls of Jericho, they did not topple them with siege weapons, but with obedience to a strange and specific command. When Gideon's army faced an enemy far larger than their own, God reduced their numbers so that the win would be unmistakably His. These moments were designed to make the people's faith grow and their dependence on Him deepen. When you forget that the battle is the Lord's, you can easily slip into exhaustion and anxiety. You start to believe that everything depends on your effort, and you may begin to panic when the odds are against you. But when you step back and let Him lead, your perspective changes. You start to see the fight not as a desperate scramble to survive, but as a stage where His power will be revealed. Sometimes, this means that you will watch Him fight in ways you didn't expect. The answer may not come through the route you anticipated. The rescue may not look like the plan you had in mind. And yet, His method will always be better because it takes into account things you cannot see, future events, hidden motifs, and spiritual realities beyond your awareness. Understanding that the battle is the Lord's also frees you from the burden of revenge. When you feel wronged or opposed, the natural response is to strike back, to prove yourself, to defend your honor. But God invites you to hand over the fight. He says, I will repay. I will handle this. Trusting Him with justice protects your heart from becoming hardened or bitter in the process. It also shifts how you measure success. Instead of asking, did I win? You begin to ask, did I obey in God's economy? Obedience is victory. Even if the outcome doesn't look like you imagined, you can trust that His definition of winning is far greater and more lasting than yours. The truth is, there will be battles that you never even know about, because God fought them before they reached you. There are enemies that were turned away, traps that were dismantled, and storms that were redirected without you ever realizing the danger you were in. The absence of trouble is sometimes the clearest evidence of His protection. For the battles you do see, the same truth holds. Your role is faithfulness. His role is finality. You march when He says, march. You speak when He says, speak. You stand still when He says, be still. And in doing so, you become a witness to His power in action. Beloved, chosen one, the weight you've been carrying is not meant to stay on your shoulders. The one who called you is the same one who will defend you. He is not a distant commander sending you into the fight alone. He is the warrior who goes ahead of you, surrounds you, and stands behind you. The battle belongs to Him, and because it does, the victory is secure. You do not have to fear the size of the opposition or the length of the fight. If God has claimed it as His, there is no force in heaven or on earth that can overturn the outcome. So breathe, rest, take your place, but let Him take the lead. Watch as He turns the tide in ways that make it undeniable This was his doing from the beginning to the end. And when the dust settles, you will stand in awe, knowing that while you were obedient, it was his strength, his strategy, and his glory that won the day. Chosen one. Every word you've received, every confirmation you've felt, every stirring in your spirit over these past sections has been more than a personal encouragement. It's been a divine equipping. God is not only strengthening you for your own journey, He is also placing a message in your hands that is meant to travel beyond you. And in this moment, you are being invited to take an active step in helping that message reach where it needs to go. We sometimes forget that partnership with heaven doesn't always happen in pulpits or on mission fields. In our generation, it also happens through the small, intentional actions that make sure the light travels further. Actions like liking, sharing, and subscribing to remain connected. These may seem like minor gestures, but they are seeds that can produce an eternal harvest when placed in God's hands. When you like this message, you are doing more than agreeing in silence. You are lifting it higher, making it more visible so that someone who desperately needs it will find it. Think of it as putting the torch on a hill where its light can be seen from far away. You don't know who will spot it, but you know the light will guide them toward hope. When you share it, you step into the role of a messenger. You're saying, "This truth is too valuable to keep to myself. It could land in the feed of someone who's been quietly crying out for a sign, or someone who's been asking God if He still sees them." You may never know their name, but your obedience can be the bridge between their despair and their breakthrough. When you subscribe, you are choosing to remain in the flow of what God is speaking here. It's like making sure you're always in the room when the next word arrives, so you're ready to receive guidance, encouragement, or correction in season. Staying connected matters because the journey of a chosen one is not a one-time moment. It's a continual unfolding of God's plan. The Word of God declares in the book of Isaiah, chapter 52, verse 7, "How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who proclaim salvation, who say to Zion, 'Your God reigns.'" When you help carry this message forward, you are taking part in proclaiming good news, not only by speaking it, but by ensuring it reaches ears that are ready to hear. Some will overlook this invitation, assuming someone else will do it. But what if you are the one God has positioned for a specific person to hear this through? What if your decision to engage today is the very step that connects this word to someone's midnight prayer? God doesn't just use preachers and prophets. He uses willing hearts in every space and every platform. You may think your influence is too small to matter, but God has a way of taking small offerings and multiplying them beyond anything you can imagine. One share can cross continents. One comment can lift a stranger's spirit. And one act of engagement can put the right word in front of someone who was ready to give up. In the kingdom, size never limits impact, availability does. And if you are available today, God can use even the smallest action to ignite hope in a heart that feels forgotten. Sometimes, the people who need this message most are the ones who will never say it out loud. They won't tell you they've been crying themselves to sleep or that they've been asking God for a sign, but heaven hears them, and heaven knows how to put a lifeline in their path. What if your decision to pass this on is the way God answers a prayer they were too afraid to speak? You may never hear their thanks, but God will record your obedience. Think of this as sowing seeds into ground you'll never see. You don't have to know the soil for the seed to grow. You just have to plant it. And when you plant with faith, you trust that God will send the rain, the sun, and the right conditions for life to spring up. That's what sharing this message does. It plants truth into places only God can reach, where it will grow in His timing into a harvest that could change someone's eternity. This is why I'm inviting you now to act not out of obligation, but out of alignment. When a word touches you, the most powerful next step is to make sure it touches someone else. That's how the kingdom multiplies. That's how a spark becomes a fire. So, chosen one, if this message has resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Like it as an act of agreement. Share it so that others can receive the same encouragement. Subscribe so that the ongoing stream of what God is saying reaches you without interruption. These aren't just digital habits, they're modern ways to be a carrier of light. Because the truth is, you may never fully know the ripple effect of your obedience on this side of eternity. But one day, when all is revealed, you may hear someone say, "I'm here because you shared that message. I'm here because your faith reached me when I needed it most." And in that moment, you'll realize it was worth every click, every share, every intentional step to make sure the light kept moving. Let's keep it moving together. Chosen one, the journey is far from over, and there are more hearts waiting to be reached. Chosen one, there are moments in your journey when God asks for a verbal response, something that turns the faith you carry in your heart into a declaration that can be seen and heard. It's not that He doesn't already know your heart, it's that speaking it out has power. It seals your position in the spirit realm. It tells heaven, "I agree." It tells the enemy, "I refuse to be moved." And it tells your own soul, "I stand where God has placed me." Declarations in the kingdom are not empty words. Scripture is full of moments where speaking in alignment with God's will shifted the atmosphere. Joshua commanded the sun to stand still, and it did. David declared victory over Goliath before the battle began. Jesus spoke to the storm, and the winds obeyed. In each case, the act of speaking was a release of authority, not just a reflection of belief. When you release words that align with God's truth, you are stepping into a stream of divine authority that began before you were born. Heaven responds to alignment, not volume, whispered. Faith in agreement with God carries more power than the loudest fear. That is why your declaration matters. You're not just speaking into the air, you're speaking into eternity, joining your voice to the chorus of saints and prophets who declared God's will over their generation and saw His hand move mightily in response. Every declaration shapes the atmosphere around you. It's like striking a match in a dark room suddenly. What was hidden is revealed, and what was threatening loses its hold. Words carry light when they carry truth, and light always displaces darkness. When you speak, "I will not fall," you're not merely encouraging yourself, you're releasing a signal to the unseen world that you are under heaven's covering and will not surrender your ground to anything less than God's promise. And in that moment, your own heart hears your voice, and something shifts within. Your declaration becomes an anchor for the mind that wanders and the emotions that fluctuate. It's a reference point you can return to when fear tries to creep in again. The more you declare in alignment with God, the more your heart learns to believe it reflexively. This is how declarations move from mere words to lived reality by being spoken, believed, and acted upon in daily life. That's why this moment matters. Today, I'm inviting you to join in a declaration that is short enough to be remembered, but strong enough to carry weight in the spirit. I will not fall. These 4 words are not just a statement, they are a stance. They mean you are not backing down from the path God has called you to walk. They mean you refuse to be swayed by fear, opposition, or uncertainty. They mean you recognize that even when the winds are strong, your foundation is unshakable because it is Christ Himself, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 13. Therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, notice how the command is not just to fight, but to stand. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not to move, but to remain immovable, where God has placed you. When you type, "I will not fall," you are doing more than acknowledging this truth. You are planting your feet spiritually. You are anchoring yourself in the commitment that you will not retreat when the pressure comes. You are aligning yourself with generations of believers who chose to stand rather than bow to fear. Compromise or despair. It is easy to stand unshaken when the skies are clear. The challenge and the power comes when you choose to stand in the storm. That's when the declaration matters most. The enemy expects you to waver when things get hard. He anticipates that the winds will push you off balance. But when you say, "I will not fall," in the middle of the trial, you are declaring that his expectations are wrong and his strategies will fail. Some of you need to speak these words today because you've been tempted to quit. You've wondered if maybe stepping back or stepping out would be easier. But deep down, you know this isn't the time to withdraw. It's the time to dig your heels into the promises God has made and refuse to be moved. And here's the truth. Standing firm doesn't mean you aren't tired. It doesn't mean you aren't still figuring some things out. It means that despite all of that, you are choosing to remain. You are saying, "I'm still here. I still believe. I still trust." That choice carries more weight than you realize. The spirit realm pays attention to what you declare. Angels are moved to action by the alignment of your words with heaven's will. Darkness loses its footing when you refuse to agree with its lies. And your own heart gains courage when it hears your mouth speak truth. So, chosen one, let these words be more than a casual comment. Let them be your war cry today. Let them echo in your spirit long after you've typed them. Let them be the reminder you come back to when the winds blow again. I will not fall. No, this is your line in the sand. This is your declaration that no matter what comes next, you will remain where God has placed you until He tells you to move. This is your statement of loyalty, your anchor, and your strength. Type it, mean it, live it, and watch how heaven honors it. There are seasons in life when God calls you into the hidden place not as a punishment, but as preparation. The hidden place is where He refines your character, sharpens your discernment, and teaches you to hear His voice without the noise of outside influence. It is a space of intimacy and shaping, far from the applause and visibility that the world often craves. In the hidden place, everything slows down. You no longer measure success by what is seen, but by what is surrendered. It is here that you discover whether your trust in God is dependent on circumstances or whether it stands even when nothing visible is changing. It is a season of deep roots rather than quick fruit. In these quiet stretches, God teaches you to value depth over display. The world may chase rapid results, but the kingdom values what can endure storms. Deep roots are not built overnight. They form through consistent surrender, through moments when you choose obedience without a guarantee of visible reward. Each prayer you pray in the dark, each step of faith you take when no one is watching, sends those roots deeper into the living water. And one day, those roots will bear fruit that will not wither when the heat comes. The hidden place also changes your relationship with time. Without the constant rush to produce, you begin to see the value of patience. You realize that growth is not always visible, yet it is constant. God's work in you during this season is often slow and subtle, like the steady strengthening of a tree trunk over years. You may not notice it daily, but one day you will look back and see how far you have come, not in noise or numbers, but in stability and strength. Here, you also learn the difference between isolation and consecration. Isolation leaves you empty, but consecration fills you with purpose. The hidden place is not meant to cut you off from life. It's meant to root you more deeply in the source of life. You begin to cherish the stillness, finding joy in the closeness of God's presence. And as you draw near, He imparts insights and strategies you could never have received in the rush of constant activity. These treasures will serve you for years to come. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 7-8. But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. The imagery is clear. The hidden root system is what sustains the visible tree. In our human desire for movement and recognition, the hidden place can feel like being forgotten. But the truth is, it is a season where God's attention on you is more focused than ever. He is cultivating in you the qualities that will hold you steady when the weight of your calling increases. He is removing the impurities that could sabotage your future. The hidden place is also where distractions are stripped away. Without the constant pull of external validation, you learn to hear the quieter, deeper voice of God. You start to discern between what is urgent and what is important, between what is loud and what is true. In this stillness, your spirit becomes attuned to the rhythms of heaven. It is often in this place that God reveals the deeper layers of your identity. He shows you not only who you are in Him, but also who you are not. He separates the labels the world has placed on you from the name He has given you. And as this identity becomes clear, you begin to walk with a new confidence, not in yourself, but in the one who has called you. Many of God's greatest servants spent time in the hidden place before stepping into public assignments. Moses had his wilderness, David had his shepherd's fields, and Jesus Himself had years of obscurity before His ministry began. These seasons were not wasted, they were essential. The private victories won in hiddenness became the foundation for public battles. The hidden place is also a place of testing. Here, motives are refined. Would you still obey if no one saw? Would you still serve if no one thanked you? Would you still pray if the answer didn't come quickly? These questions reveal whether you are following God for His presence or merely for His benefits. For some, the hidden place can feel like a wilderness, a dry and barren stretch of land. But even here, God is present. The wilderness strips away illusions and teaches dependence. It trains you to find streams of living water where others see only desert. And when the season shifts, you emerge stronger, clearer, and more focused than before. It is important not to rush out of the hidden place before the work is complete. If you push for visibility too soon, you risk stepping into responsibilities that your roots cannot yet support. But when you allow God to finish the refining, the fruit that comes later will last, because it will be grounded in the deep soil of His presence. Beloved, chosen one, if you find yourself unseen right now, take heart. You are not overlooked. You are being hidden on purpose. The same God who calls you into the shadows will, in His time, call you into the light. And when He does, you will carry something that can only be forged in the secret place: unshakable trust, proven faithfulness, and a quiet strength that does not depend on applause to remain steady. Do not despise this season. Do not mistake hiddenness for insignificance. What God is building in you now will sustain you when the winds of public life blow strong. Stay in His presence. Stay teachable, and let the roots go deep. When the time comes, the fruit will speak for itself. There comes a time when God begins to uncover the layers He has been patiently building in you during the hidden season. This unveiling is not sudden chaos. It is the gradual revelation of the work He has completed in secret. The skills honed, the faith deepened, the endurance built, all come to the surface in the exact moment they are needed. And when that moment comes, you will not feel the need to prove yourself. The fruit will speak for itself. God's unveiling is purposeful. It is not about putting you in the spotlight for the sake of attention. It is about positioning you where your obedience can bear the most fruit for His kingdom. Sometimes that means influence in places you never imagined. Sometimes it means walking into assignments that seem beyond your qualifications, yet perfectly aligned with the preparation He's given you. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 16, a gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great. Your gift refined in quietness will make room for you at the right time. But the timing belongs to Him, and it is not to be rushed. The unveiling season is often marked by divine appointments. You begin to meet people whose roles in your story could not have been orchestrated by human effort. Conversations open doors. Unexpected invitations place you in rooms where your voice is needed. In these moments, it becomes clear that the season of preparation was not in vain. It was an investment in readiness. However, with unveiling comes responsibility. Visibility invites both opportunity and scrutiny. You will face not only the joy of open doors, but also the weight of new expectations. This is why God takes time in the hidden season to fortify your character, so that your platform does not outgrow your foundation. Many fall when they are elevated too soon, but those who have been rooted in God's presence remain steady. This is not to say the unveiling will be easy. There will be moments when the increased responsibility feels overwhelming, when the pace quickens, and when the stakes feel higher. In these moments, it is essential to remember that the same God who carried you in obscurity will sustain you in visibility. You are not meant to carry the weight alone. You are meant to remain yoked to Him, drawing from His strength daily. The unveiling will also test your motives. You may be tempted to chase the approval of people, to measure your worth by the response you receive, or to alter your message to fit expectations. But the call on your life did not originate from the applause of man, and it cannot be sustained by it. You must remember that your primary audience is still heaven. Your aim is to remain faithful, not popular. This is where the discipline of the hidden season continues to serve you. You learn to pray without recognition, to obey without reward, to listen without rushing. Those same habits will guard you against the subtle traps of visibility. They will keep your heart soft and your focus clear. The unveiling is not the end of the journey, it is simply a new chapter. God may reveal you to a wider audience, but He will continue to shape and refine you. The process of growth does not stop when others begin to notice your fruit. In fact, it often intensifies, because the higher the tree grows, the deeper the roots must remain. It is also important to recognize that unveiling is not a one-time event. There will be layers of revelation throughout your life. God may unveil you in one area while keeping another part of your calling hidden for a later time. This protects you from carrying too much too soon and ensures that each aspect of your purpose emerges in its perfect season. In the unveiling, you will also face the challenge of stewardship. How you handle what God places in your hands will determine the longevity and impact of your influence. Will you use it to serve or to be served? Will you guard the purity of your gift or compromise it for comfort? These questions are not meant to intimidate you. They are meant to anchor you in the reality that influence is a trust, not a possession. The enemy is always looking for ways to distort what God unveils. He will try to sow pride, distraction, or weariness into your spirit. That's why staying in constant communion with God is essential. Prayer is not optional in this season, it is your lifeline. Worship is not a side practice, it is your shelter. Scripture is not merely inspiration, it is your anchor. Beloved chosen one, the unveiling season is a testimony of God's faithfulness. It is proof that nothing you endured in the hidden place was wasted. Every tear watered a seed. Every delay deepened your roots. Every test strengthened your grip on the promises of God. And now, as you step into greater visibility, you carry the fragrance of that journey, the humility, the resilience, and the unshakable trust that can only be forged in waiting. Do not fear the unveiling. Do not shrink back from the doors He opens. Walk through them with the quiet confidence of one who knows they were placed there by the hand of God. And when others ask how you arrived, let your answer point back to Him, because it was His preparation, His timing, and His favor that brought you here. You are stepping into a season where your voice, your presence, and your obedience will have a ripple effect far beyond your immediate reach. The unveiling is not about you being seen, it is about Him being revealed through you. And as long as that remains your focus, the influence He gives will remain a blessing, not a burden. Chosen one. There are moments in your walk with God when He asks you to mark the season not only in your memory, but with a prophetic act that carries spiritual weight. Today is such a moment. It is an invitation to declare, to align, and to set your heart in agreement with what heaven is speaking over you. When God gives a prophetic act, it is never meaningless. In Scripture, He often instructed His people to do something symbolic that carried a deeper spiritual reality. Noah built an ark before there was rain. Joshua marched around Jericho before the walls fell. The prophet Elijah poured water on the altar before fire came down from heaven. These actions didn't make sense in the natural, but in the spirit, they were acts of obedience that unlocked the miraculous. Today, the prophetic act is simple. Comment, the number 111. Why 111? Biblically and prophetically, the number 1 represents unity, wholeness, and divine alignment. Triple ones magnify that meaning. It's not just a casual agreement. It's complete and perfect unity between your spirit and God's will. It is a declaration that you are one with His plan, one with His timing, and one with His truth. The ancient words recorded in Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 4, declare, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. The Lord is one, and today you are declaring that you will be one with Him in purpose, in heart, and in action." When you comment 111, you're not typing numbers for decoration. You are placing a marker in the spiritual realm. You are saying, "I align fully with heaven's plan for my life. I will not run ahead of God, and I will not lag behind Him. I will walk in step with His Spirit." Some will see this number and think it's nothing more than digits on a screen. But for those who understand the prophetic language of the kingdom, it is a seal. It's like the Israelites placing blood on their doorposts during Passover, a visible act of agreement that positioned them for protection and deliverance. Your 111 is your declaration of unity with the purposes of God in this very moment. This number also carries a reminder of focus. 1 means singular. 1 means undivided. 1 means not distracted by competing voices or conflicting agendas. 111 is heaven's reminder. Stay focused. Keep your eyes on me. Do not be swayed by the noise. When you type it, you are committing to a single allegiance to the voice and leading of your shepherd. Perhaps right now you are in a season where many things are pulling at you. Opinions from people, pressure from circumstances, and whispers from the enemy trying to plant doubt. The act of declaring 111 says, "My heart is not for sale. My loyalty is not divided. My eyes are fixed on the Lord." And this alignment is powerful because agreement with God always produces movement in the Spirit. When you come into unity with His Word, His promises begin to manifest in your life. When you agree with His timing, you step out of the frustration of delay and into the peace of trust. When you agree with His ways, you step away from striving and into the flow of grace. Beloved, your 111 today is not for the crowd, it's for the covenant. Heaven records it. Angels respond to it. The enemy fears it because unity with God is a shield that cannot be penetrated. And the best part, when you align with Him, you also align yourself for the blessings He has already prepared for you. Think about it. How many times in your life have you seen God move simply because you decided to trust Him fully? The miracle wasn't in the size of your effort, but in the depth of your agreement with His plan. 111 is your way of saying, "I'm all in. I trust you completely. I will not waver." And I believe this when you type that number in faith today. Something shifts. It might be a door opening, a chain breaking, a prayer being set in motion, or simply the peace of knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be. You may not see the fullness immediately, but you can trust that in the unseen, the alignment is taking effect. So, chosen one, don't delay. Let your 111 be bold. Let it be intentional. Let it be your way of marking this day as the day you renewed your oneness with God's will. And when the coming days bring decisions, challenges, or opportunities, you will be able to look back and say, "I've already set my alignment. My heart is one with His heart. My pace is one with His pace. My life is one with His plan." End of foot. This isn't just a comment, it's a covenant. And heaven honors covenants. Chosen one, Every message you have received until now has been a piece of a divine tapestry. It has been a journey of equipping, sharpening, and awakening you to the reality of who you are in God's plan. But what you may not realize is that this journey isn't meant for you alone. It is designed to flow through you into the lives of others. And in our time, that often means using even the simplest tools available to make sure the light keeps traveling. When you take a moment to like this message, you're not just signaling agreement, you're lifting the lamp higher so that its light can be seen by those who are still in the shadows. Every click is like setting a torch on a hilltop where its flame can guide someone's steps. You may never know who needed that light, but heaven will see your obedience in helping it shine further. When you share this message, you become part of its mission. You're stepping into the role of a messenger, choosing to pass forward a word that may be the exact confirmation or encouragement someone has been praying for. You don't have to preach a sermon or write a book. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is make sure the right word lands in the right place at the right time. And when you subscribe, you're making a commitment to stay connected to the ongoing stream of what God is speaking here. This isn't just about receiving, it's about remaining in a place where you can keep growing, keep being challenged, and keep your heart in sync with heaven's voice. Staying connected ensures that you don't miss the next word that could shift your perspective or strengthen your steps. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 96, verse 3, "Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples." This is what happens when you engage. Your small act becomes part of a global declaration. Whether it's reaching someone in your own neighborhood or across an ocean, the message you carry becomes a testimony of his glory in motion. When you step into that role, you're joining a chain of faith that stretches back generations. The apostles didn't see the full impact of their obedience, yet their letters still speak today. In the same way, you may never meet the person whose heart is touched because you chose to act, but your obedience becomes a link in their story of salvation and restoration. That's the beauty of kingdom work. You may plant a seed today that blossoms decades from now, and heaven keeps record of every seed sown in faith. The reach of a message isn't just about technology, it's about divine timing. God knows exactly when someone will be ready to hear, and He often positions us to be the delivery point. What you share today might land in someone's feed at the precise moment they are about to make a life-altering decision. In that instant, the truth you helped deliver can be the very thing that redirects their steps and preserves their destiny. That is no small thing. It's the fingerprint of God working through your willingness. Every share, every connection, and every intentional action becomes part of an unseen network of grace. Like rivers flowing from the same source, your small acts join the larger current of what God is doing across the earth. You may see only ripples in your corner of the world, but those ripples join waves in other places, forming a tide of transformation that sweeps across lives, communities, and even nations. This is why heaven values obedience over scale, because God is the one who multiplies. There will be moments when you wonder if it really matters. If your single action could possibly make a difference in such a vast and noisy world. In those moments, remember how Jesus told the parable of the mustard seed, a seed so small, yet capable of growing into a tree large enough to shelter many. Your obedience is that seed. The kingdom doesn't measure potential by size, but by surrender. And when you offer what you have, God can turn it into more than you ever dreamed. It's easy to think that someone else will do it, that the message will spread without you. But what if God positioned you as the bridge for someone's breakthrough? What if your action today is the reason a discouraged heart chooses to hold on a little longer? That's why your participation matters. It's not just digital interaction. It's kingdom partnership. When the early church spread the gospel, they did it by every means available: letters, conversations, songs, and shared meals. In our day, we have tools that can reach across continents in seconds. To use them for God's purposes is not just wise, it's stewardship. It's saying, Lord, I will use what you've placed in my hands to carry your light as far as it will go. And so, I'm inviting you, chosen one, to take that step now, not out of obligation, but out of alignment with the mission you've been given. If this word has blessed you, help it bless someone else. If it has lifted your spirit, help it lift another. If it has confirmed your path, help it confirm someone else's. Like it, so the light rises higher. Share it, so it finds its way to the hungry and the hurting. Subscribe, so you can remain in step with what heaven is releasing here. These simple actions may feel small in the moment, but when done in obedience, they can ripple into eternity. Remember, your voice, your agreement, and your reach matter more than you know. What you pass along today may one day come back to you as a testimony from someone whose life was changed because you made sure they heard the message in time. The kingdom moves through willing vessels. Today, you can be one of them, chosen one. There are moments when God requires you not only to believe silently, but to speak boldly. There is power in declaring your position aloud, not because God needs to hear it to know your heart, but because the act of speaking shifts the atmosphere. It's a proclamation to heaven that you agree, to the enemy that you refuse to retreat, and to your own soul that you are rooted in the truth. Throughout Scripture, God's people were often called to verbalize their allegiance and trust. Joshua stood before Israel and said, "Choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve." David declared before facing Goliath, "The battle is the Lord's." Jesus spoke over storms, sickness, and death, and creation responded. These were not casual statements. They were decrees that aligned the visible world with heaven's authority. Those words are not meant to simply fill the air. They are the echo of active faith. They are spoken from the mouths of those who have decided to trust God regardless of circumstances. And each phrase carries the weight of heaven. When Joshua chose to declare in front of the assembly, he sealed the course of an entire generation. When David shouted before Goliath, he set the tone for victory before releasing the first stone. When Jesus spoke to the storm, he placed spiritual order above chaos. Declarations like, "My faith stands," are not empty. They are the spiritual signatures of warriors who have learned that their words can align earth with heaven. They mark the boundaries where fear cannot cross. They call forth the promises God has spoken, and they remind every force of darkness that the believer's heart is under divine protection. Even more, they shape the speaker, training the mind and spirit to stand on truth rather than be swept away by temporary waves. And in this alignment, both the seen and unseen realms take notice, because where faith stands, victory follows. Today, you are being invited into such a moment. The declaration is simple, yet profound. My faith stands. I'm. These three words may sound small, but in the spiritual realm, they are a banner. They tell darkness that you cannot be shaken. They tell trials that your anchor is not in shifting circumstances, but in the unchanging word of God. They remind your own heart that, no matter the season, your trust is rooted in the one who has never failed you. Scripture says in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 7, "If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you." Remaining is not passive, it is an active choice to stay in alignment, to hold your ground, and to let nothing pull you from your position in Christ. When you type, "My faith stands," you are choosing to remain, no matter what tries to sway you. Think of what it means for your faith to stand. It means that even when your emotions waver, your trust does not collapse. It means that even when questions arise, you choose not to abandon the one who holds the answers. It means that you have learned to walk by faith and not by sight, not because it's easy, but because you've discovered that sight can deceive, while faith anchors you to eternal truth. When you declare, "My faith stands," you are also joining a lineage of believers who refuse to bow to fear or compromise. You stand with Daniel in the lion's den, unshaken in the presence of danger. You stand with Esther in the throne room, risking everything for the sake of obedience. You stand with Paul in prison, singing hymns in the midnight hour. You stand with Jesus in Gethsemane, choosing the Father's will over your own. The enemy would love for you to stay silent. He knows that silence in the midst of trial can turn into agreement with defeat. But when you speak, when you declare God's truth over your situation, you pierce through the lies that try to take root in your mind. Your words become a sword, cutting through despair and reinforcing hope. This declaration is also a commitment to future moments. You may be at peace now, but storms will come. When they do, "My faith stands" will not be just a memory, it will be your war cry. You will remember this moment, this alignment, and this choice, and it will give you strength to keep going. And do not underestimate the ripple effect of your words. Someone may read your declaration and find courage to make their own. Someone may see your faith and decide to hold on a little longer. In this way, your simple act of typing 3 words can plant seeds of perseverance in the hearts of others. So, chosen one, do not hold back. Speak it. Type it. Let the world see it and let heaven record it. My faith stands. Let it be more than a sentence. Let it be your position, your identity, and your offering to God today. Stand now and keep standing, for the one who called you is faithful, and he will not let you fall. There is a depth to God's dealings with his chosen ones that cannot be rushed, cannot be imitated, and cannot be bypassed. By the time you arrive at the later stages of your journey, you begin to see with greater clarity how every step, both the ones you celebrated and the ones you questioned, was part of a design so precise. It could only have been authored by the one who sees the end from the beginning. This stage is often marked by perspective. You look back and realize that the delays which once frustrated you were actually gifts. They were pauses for preparation, not punishments. They were seasons where God withheld certain things, not because you were unworthy, but because he was protecting you from stepping into them prematurely. The wisdom gained here is priceless. You learn that his not yet is just as loving as his yes. Lo, it was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 7, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. This is not merely a reflection at the end of life. It is a declaration you can make at the close of any season in which you remained steadfast, even when you didn't fully understand the path. By now, you know that keeping the faith is not about holding on when things are easy. It's about holding on when nothing makes sense. It's about trusting when the evidence seems to point the other way. It's about staying faithful to the call when others walk away, when resources seem scarce, and when the cost feels high. At this point in your journey, you also recognize that endurance is more than survival, it's transformation. You are not the same person who started this path. The fears that once intimidated you have lost their grip. The doubts that once clouded your mind now fade faster because you've seen God's faithfulness too many times to forget it. You've been refined by fire, but you've also been strengthened by grace. And here is the beautiful paradox. The more you endure, the more your endurance is no longer fueled by sheer willpower, but by intimacy with God. You've learned to lean into His strength rather than constantly straining in your own. This shift changes everything. You fight your battles differently, with a quiet confidence that the outcome is already in His hands. There's also a deeper awareness now of the responsibility you carry. Influence, whether over one person or thousands, is never accidental. It is always entrusted, and with that trust comes the call to steward it well. You understand that the way you live, speak, and decide has the power to point others toward God or away from Him. This awareness doesn't burden you, it sobers you. It reminds you that your life is not your own, and your calling is sacred. This maturity also gives you peace in the face of misunderstanding. There will always be those who misread your actions, question your motives, or doubt your calling. But the difference now is that you no longer feel the compulsion to explain yourself endlessly. You've learned that obedience to God often invites misunderstanding from people. You've made peace with the fact that not everyone will see what God has shown you, and that's okay. You also begin to treasure the simplicity of obedience. Early in the journey, it might have been tempting to overcomplicate the call of God with layers of ambition, comparison, or self-imposed deadlines. But now, you see the beauty of a straightforward yes to His leading. Even if it doesn't fit the world's metrics of success, that yes has become your compass, and you've learned it's the only measure that matters in the long run. The fruit of this stage is a heart that is less reactive and more rooted. You no longer chase every open door, you test it first. You no longer fear every closed door, you trust that it shuts for your protection. You begin to live with the quiet awareness that the seasons will keep shifting, but the faithfulness of God will remain constant. And with that awareness comes gratitude, not the shallow kind that only surfaces when circumstances are favorable, but the deep, settled gratitude that says, even if things never look the way I imagined, I am still blessed because I have Him. This gratitude changes the atmosphere around you. It draws people in, not because you've avoided hardship, but because you carry peace in the midst of it. Beloved chosen one. The late stages of the journey are not about coasting to the finish. They are about pouring out what has been poured into you. This is the season to encourage others with the same comfort you've received, to guide those who are where you once were, and to keep pointing every victory back to the one who made it possible. You've learned that the real measure of success is not how much you've accumulated, but how much of Him you've revealed to others along the way. And that understanding will shape the way you finish every race He sets before you, faithful, focused, and filled with expectation for what He will do next. There is a point in the journey of the chosen ones when the lessons of the past, the endurance of the present, and the hope for the future all converge into a single, steady rhythm. It is not the frantic rush of trying to make things happen, nor is it the complacent drift of letting life simply unfold. It is the deliberate, spirit-led pace of one who knows they walk with God. At this stage, you begin to understand the difference between movement and progress. Movement can be constant, yet unproductive, like a ship caught in a storm, tossed back and forth without reaching the shore. Progress, however, is steady, purposeful, and aligned with the wind of the Spirit. You realize it's not about how much you do, but about how closely you stay in step with Him. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." This truth has settled deep in your soul. You are no longer impatient when the vision seems slow in coming, because you've learned that God's timing is never late. It is always precise. In this maturity, your prayers change. They become less about asking God to speed things up and more about asking Him to make you ready for the appointed time. You begin to pray for discernment to recognize the season, for courage to step into it fully when it arrives, and for humility to remember that every good thing still comes from Him. The storms of earlier seasons have shaped your resilience. You no longer panic when clouds gather, because you've seen how God uses even the fiercest winds to carry you forward. You've learned to interpret opposition differently, not as a sign of abandonment, but often as confirmation that you are on the right path. Resistance has become a sharpening tool rather than a stumbling block. Your relationship with silence also changes here. What once felt like the absence of God now feels like His invitation to listen more deeply. You no longer fear the quiet because you know His voice is not always in the earthquake or the fire. It is often in the gentle whisper. That whisper has become enough to guide you, even in the absence of outward signs. There's also a newfound security in not knowing all the details. Earlier in your journey, uncertainty might have stirred anxiety. Now, it stirs anticipation. You've come to see that mystery is part of God's design. It keeps you dependent on Him, keeps you attentive, and keeps you from running ahead of His plan. The relationships in your life also shift in this stage. You begin to gravitate toward those who strengthen your faith and sharpen your focus. You value depth over breadth, fewer conversations, but richer ones, fewer connections, but more intentional ones. You no longer feel the need to explain your every step to everyone, because you know some assignments are only meant to be understood by those who walk closely with God. This season also brings a clarity about your battles. You no longer waste energy fighting distractions or defending yourself against every opinion. You save your strength for the battles that matter, the ones that align with your calling and advance the kingdom. And because of that focus, you begin to see greater victories with less wasted motion in your inner life. The fruit of the Spirit becomes more visible, not because you're trying harder to produce it, but because it flows naturally from your connection to the vine. Patience, kindness, and self-control stop being abstract ideals and start becoming the natural responses of a heart anchored in God's love. There's also a deeper humility here. You remember the times you nearly gave up, the prayers you whispered in desperation, the ways God rescued you when you had nothing left to offer. That memory keeps pride from taking root. It reminds you that the strength you walk in now is borrowed. It belongs to Him. Looking ahead, you no longer see the future as a blank space to be filled by your plans, but as an unfolding scroll already written by God. Your role is simply to turn the page in step with His hand. This brings a freedom you didn't have before, the freedom to let go of control without letting go of responsibility. You still act, still work, still prepare, but you do so from a place of trust, not striving. Beloved chosen one, this stage of your journey is not about slowing down, it's about moving in sync with the eternal rhythm of God's plan. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be for the work He is doing in and through you right now. The strength you carry here will not be easily shaken, because it's not built on adrenaline or fleeting motivation. It's built on the unchanging character of God. You've seen too much of His faithfulness to doubt Him now. You've learned that the waiting seasons are never wasted, the storms are never pointless, and the silence is never empty. So you walk on, not rushing, not dragging, but moving with the steady heartbeat of heaven. Every step is ordered, every moment is covered, and every day you are becoming more and more like the one who called you, until the day you see Him face to face and hear the words your heart has longed for. Well done, good and faithful servant. There is a sacred weight that comes near the end of a God-ordained journey, not the heaviness of burden, but the gravity of purpose. You begin to realize that every step you've taken, every trial you've endured, and every victory you've celebrated has been preparing you for a culmination that will echo into eternity. This is not merely the closing of a chapter, it is the fulfillment of a promise. You start to see patterns in hindsight. The obstacles that once seemed random now reveal themselves as strategic training grounds. The delays that frustrated you now appear as divine pauses that aligned you with perfect timing. Even the people who came and went played roles in shaping your faith, either sharpening it through encouragement or strengthening it through resistance. Nothing was wasted. Looking back, you see how each valley taught you endurance and each mountaintop revealed God's faithfulness in fresh ways. The trials that once seemed like detours now feel like hidden highways, leading you to destinations you could never have reached on your own. Even in seasons when God seemed silent, His hand was quietly guiding every turn, weaving beauty out of what looked like brokenness. The awareness of this divine orchestration fills you with a gratitude that runs deeper than words. It becomes a song in your spirit, a melody that plays quietly beneath every moment of your life. You realize now that the seasons of pruning were as vital as the seasons of growth. Without pruning, the branches of your life would have been weighed down with what could not last, leaving no room for the fruit that would endure. God's careful cutting away may have felt painful, but it made space for abundance you could never have produced otherwise. And now, in this place of maturity, you see the wisdom in His timing, how He never removed anything without the intention of replacing it with something far better. Even if it took years for you to understand, the faces of those who walked part of the journey with you still rise in your memory. Some were encouragers, speaking life when you were weary. Others were challengers, sharpening your convictions through disagreement or misunderstanding. A few were teachers without knowing it, their presence revealing lessons you didn't know you needed. Though not all remain, you no longer mourn their absence, you honor their impact. God used every encounter to mold you into the person you are now, and you carry each one as part of the tapestry He has been weaving from the first step until now. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. This verse no longer feels like an abstract comfort. It has become your lived experience. You've seen battles won, not by your striving, but by God's intervention. You've learned that stillness is not passivity. It is the posture of trust in the one who commands the outcome. At this stage, your priorities shift even more toward eternal impact. You measure your actions by their kingdom value rather than their earthly recognition. What once might have been done to prove yourself is now done solely to please the one who called you. You no longer need to chase opportunities. They come to you, drawn by the fragrance of God's presence in your life. Your prayers, too, carry a different tone. They are less about asking for what you think you need and more about aligning yourself with what God already intends to do. They are filled with gratitude for the unseen ways He has carried you, and with anticipation for the unseen ways He will continue to lead you. There is less urgency in your voice, not because you care less, but because you trust more. The wisdom you've gained makes you more selective with your words and actions. You've learned the value of silence when speaking would not serve the mission. You've learned to act decisively when delay would dishonor God's timing. This balance is not born from human discipline, but from the Spirit's constant guidance. There is also a deeper awareness of legacy. You understand now that your obedience will outlive you. The seeds you've sown in faith, whether in relationships, in service, or in truth spoken, will bear fruit in seasons you will never personally witness. This thought does not sadden you, it humbles you. You are part of a story so much larger than yourself, and your role is to faithfully play your part. In this late stage, peace becomes your constant companion, not the fragile peace that depends on circumstances, but the enduring peace that flows from knowing you are exactly where God wants you to be. You no longer rush to the next thing, nor do you cling fearfully to the current moment. You simply abide. The trials that still come no longer throw you off balance. You've learned that storms do not signal the absence of God. They often precede His greatest works. You face them with the quiet assurance that the same hand that led you through before will lead you through again. This stage also deepens your sense of worship. Praise is no longer just a response to blessings. It has become the atmosphere in which you live. You find yourself worshiping in the middle of ordinary tasks, not because of what's happening around you, but because of what's unshakably true about the one you serve. As you approach the end of this particular path, you realize that finishing well is not about crossing a line with grandeur, it's about crossing it with faith intact. You want to arrive without bitterness, without regret, and without having compromised the convictions that carried you this far. You want to arrive having given your all to the one who gave his all for you. Beloved, chosen one. The end is not the end. In the kingdom, every ending is a beginning. Every completion, a doorway into something greater. You can step forward with confidence, knowing that the God who was faithful at the start is faithful at the finish and will be faithful beyond it. There is a sacred stillness at the threshold of completion, a pause between what has been and what is about to come. You stand in that space now, aware that the journey you have walked was never just about reaching a destination, but about becoming the person God intended you to be all along. Every step, every turn, every season of waiting and moving, breaking and mending, has brought you to this moment. Here, the lessons of the past and the promises of the future meet in quiet agreement. You can look back without regret because you know nothing was wasted. You can look forward without fear because you trust the one who holds the future. The ground beneath your feet feels steady, not because the path ahead is certain, but because the guide is faithful. You have come to see that the same God who walked beside you in the uncertainty of yesterday is already standing in the moments you have yet to live. This awareness changes the way you breathe, the way you decide, the way you hope. It strips away the anxiety of control, replacing it with a settled trust. You no longer feel the pressure to predict every outcome because you have learned that the one who directs your steps has never made a mistake. The past is no longer a source of shame or confusion. It is a gallery of testimonies. Each scar tells a story of grace. Each tear marks a moment when you were carried. Each delay reveals a chapter of preparation. You can walk through the gallery without turning your face away, because even the painful portraits have been touched by redemption. What once felt like a season of loss now stands as a monument to God's restoring power. And so you face the future, not with clenched teeth, but with lifted eyes. You know there will be rivers to cross and fires to endure. But you also know that the promise still holds. I will be with you. The weight of that presence is enough to steady your steps. It becomes the rhythm of your journey, one foot in the promise, the other in the present. This moment, standing between what has been and what is to come, is holy ground. You are not here by accident. You are here because the God who called you from the beginning has kept you for such a time as this. The next steps are His to reveal, and yours to follow, with a heart that knows, truly knows that He is faithful. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 2, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze." This promise has been proven in your life, time and again. You have walked through floods and fires and found Him present in them all. Completion in the kingdom is never an end, it is a doorway. You do not close this chapter with a sense of finality, but with the anticipation of the next one God is writing. The work He began in you continues, shaping you not only for what you have already endured, but for what is yet to come. At this point, your faith is not simply a conviction, it is a way of being. You have learned to lean into God's timing, to trust His no as much as His yes, and to see His hand even when it's hidden from sight. The striving that once drove you has given way to a steady, surrendered pace. You no longer run ahead in fear of being left behind, nor do you linger in hesitation. You move with Him. There is also a new depth to your worship. It's no longer confined to moments of blessing or victory. It's a constant undercurrent in your life. You worship because you have seen His character, and you know it is good. You praise not only for what He's done, but for who He is. This kind of worship cannot be shaken by circumstances because it is anchored in truth, not in outcomes. The voice of the world may still clamor for your attention, but its pull is weaker now. You've learned to tune your ear to the voice of the shepherd and to let His words carry more weight than any other. This discernment is one of the greatest treasures you take from this journey. It will guard you in the days to come, and perhaps the most striking change is the peace you now carry. It is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of assurance. You know storms will still come, but you also know the one who commands them. You know valleys will still stretch before you, but you also know they are not without purpose. You know battles will still be fought, but you also know the victory is already secured in Him. Beloved chosen one, the chapter you are closing is a testament to God's sustaining power. You have walked with Him through shadow and light, through loss and restoration, through silence and song, and through it all, He has been faithful. You step forward now with a quiet confidence, not the confidence of one who has all the answers, but of one who knows the answer. You walk into the future, not with clenched fists, but with open hands, ready to receive whatever He chooses to place in them. And though you may not yet see the fullness of what He has prepared, you know this: He finishes what He starts. The story is still being written, and the author is good. Chosen one, if this journey has stirred something in your spirit, don't let the flames stay hidden. What God plants in you is not only for you, it's meant to shine, to reach, and to awaken others who are still walking through the valleys you've already crossed. When you like this message, you are helping lift that flame higher. You are saying to the unseen realm, this light will not be dimmed. And you are making it easier for someone else's weary heart to see it. A single click may feel small, but the ripple effect in the kingdom is never small. When you share this message, you are stepping into the role of a messenger. You are extending the reach of this word beyond the limits of my voice or your screen, carrying it into places and hearts you may never personally visit. And you never know whose midnight moment will be interrupted by hope because you chose to pass it on. When you subscribe, you're not just adding your name to a list, you're choosing to stay connected to a flow of truth and encouragement that can keep you aligned in the days ahead. The journey is not a one-time event, it's a path we keep walking together, step by step, until we see the fullness of God's promises. And now, I'm inviting you to seal this moment with a prophetic act. Type the number 440, 4-inch, the comments. In the language of biblical symbolism, 4 often speaks of stability, foundation, and completeness in God's created order. 444 magnifies it, declaring that your life is being firmly established on His unshakable truth, that the foundation He has built in you will not crumble, and that you are fully aligned with the structure He has ordained for your purpose. When you comment 444, you're declaring in faith, I am rooted, I am secure, I will not be moved. It's not just digits, it's a statement that you are grounded in the One who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Heaven hears it, the enemy fears it, and your own soul will remember it when the winds try to blow again. So, chosen one like this, so the light rises higher. Share it, so the hope reaches further. Subscribe, so you remain in the flow of God's word and encouragement. And comment 444 to mark this moment, to align with heaven, and to declare that you are planted in a place where fruit will remain. This is more than a message, it's a movement, and you are part of it.